Why did ancient cultures imagine multiple layers of reality? And what fears did otherworld stories address? Imagine standing between two mirrors facing each other. You see your own reflection repeated over and over, trailing off into an endless corridor of ghostly images. Each reflection is slightly dimmer than the last, but they seem to go on forever. It's a simple trick of light and glass, yet it hints at a profound idea that has fascinated humanity for ages. The idea of infinity, and the possibility that our reality might not be singular, but one of countless reflections, stretching beyond what we can see or comprehend. From time immemorial, we have gazed at the night sky and felt the pull of the infinite. The stars, scattered in the darkness, seemed numberless to our ancestors. Sitting under a dome of uncountable lights, early humans wondered, what lies beyond those distant points of light? Is there an edge to the universe, or does it go on without end? The concept of an endless expanse, of something that has no boundary, stirs a peculiar feeling inside us. It is at once awe-inspiring and a little unsettling. It reminds us of how small we are, and yet it sparks our imagination with endless possibilities. Infinity is not a concept we easily grasp, but it calls to us. Even the word forever feels almost magical, a promise or a mystery. In our everyday lives, we rarely encounter true infinity. A long road might seem endless until it turns. A large number might seem uncountable until we try to measure it. But infinity is different. It defies our attempts to contain it. Whenever we think we've reached the biggest number or the farthest distance, we can always go a little further or add one more. There's something both exhilarating and disorienting in that realization. Some find the idea of infinity comforting, a promise of endless possibilities, while others find it a bit frightening, a reminder of how small we are in the face of the boundless. But whether it awes or unnerves us, it undeniably captivates our minds and hearts. Every culture, every era, has tried to make sense of the infinite in its own way. Over the centuries, thinkers and dreamers have used different images to try to understand infinity. Some imagined the universe as a great wheel with no beginning or end, turning forever. Others pictured an endless cycle of time, with ages repeating over and over. And of course, there was the idea of endless space. Beyond every horizon, more horizons. Beyond every star, more stars without limit. To the human mind, raised in a world where everything seems to have a start and finish, these ideas were challenging, but they were also irresistible. They opened the mind to the notion that reality might be far grander than what our eyes can see. To think of infinity is to flirt with the unknowable. It invites questions that have no easy answers. If space is infinite, what does that mean for us? Are there infinite other worlds out there? Perhaps even ones much like our own? If time is infinite, did we exist in some form eons before we were born? And will some part of us continue eons after we're gone? Every culture, in its own way, attempted to make sense of this boundlessness. Often, the infinite was thought of as divine or beyond mortal reach, an attribute of gods or of the universe itself. In ancient times, people found comfort and meaning by weaving infinity into stories. The endless sky became the dwelling of immortal beings. The infinite cycle of seasons and years turned into myths of death and rebirth, of worlds dying and being born again. By wrapping the infinite in familiar images, like a serpent swallowing its tail, or a phoenix rising from its ashes. People tried to bring the unfathomable a little closer to heart. These stories were like mental mirrors, reflecting our world and then extending it into the unknown, hinting that beyond the edge of what we know lies something vast and extraordinary. Perhaps it's only natural that from thinking about infinity, we began to wonder about other worlds. After all, if the cosmos has no end, could it hold realms beyond our own? When you stand on a shoreline and gaze at the ocean stretching out to the horizon, you might catch yourself imagining distant lands beyond that line where sky and water meet. In a similar way, once we accepted that reality might extend further than one world, our minds leapt to imagine what those other worlds could be like. Might they be mirrors of our own world, or utterly different? Could there be places where the sky is a different color, where life follows different rules, where maybe even another version of you might exist? Such questions have danced on the edge of human thought for millennia. They are whispered in our myths, pondered by our philosophers, and played out in our stories. They carry a sense of mystery and wonder. What if our world is just one of many? What if beyond the visible stars, beyond the fabric of space we know, there are countless unseen realms, some perhaps very similar to ours, and others beyond anything we can imagine? This tantalizing idea, the possibility of other worlds, other universes, has been like a siren song, calling us to explore not just outward into the physical world, but inward into the realm of imagination and speculation. Tonight, under the quiet sky or in the hush of your room, you can almost feel that mystery. It's in the silence between heartbeats, when you consider questions too big for easy answers. It's that gentle, thrilling shiver when you look into a dark sky or a deep mirror and sense that maybe, just maybe, the unknown is peering back. In these reflections of infinity, our journey begins. A journey through the many ways humans have envisioned worlds beyond our own. From ancient dreams and myths to the bold theories of modern science, our path will wind through time and ideas, never rushing, always gazing a little further as we explore these mirrors of infinity and the otherworldly theories they inspire. From the earliest ages, human beings have spun tales of hidden realms and other worlds. In the eyes of ancient peoples, reality was not one flat plane, but a rich tapestry of layers, domains seen and unseen. The sky above was not empty space. It was often imagined as heaven, a higher world where powerful beings dwelled. Beneath our feet, deep in the ground, might lie another realm entirely, perhaps the land of the dead or subterranean worlds of spirits. Everywhere we look in ancient mythologies, we find the notion that our familiar world is just one of many, surrounded or permeated by other domains filled with mystery. One of the oldest surviving tales in human history, the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, already speaks of worlds beyond. In this story, the hero king Gilgamesh ventures to the very ends of the earth in search of the secret of immortality. He crosses the treacherous waters of death and finds himself in a paradise garden at the edge of the world, where he meets Utnapishtim, a wise man who was granted eternal life after a great flood. Gilgamesh hopes to bring back the gift of immortality for himself and his people. In the end, he returns home without it, learning that the otherworldly paradise is not meant for mortals to dwell in. Yet the very existence of that far-off realm in the story suggests that beyond the boundaries of the everyday world, the ancients imagined a place where the normal rules, even life and death, could be transcended. Consider the world of the ancient Norse. They envisioned the universe as a great tree, Yggdrasil, whose branches and roots held many worlds. There was Asgard, the realm of the gods, high above, and Midgard, the world of humans, in the middle. Far below lay Helheim, the underworld of the dead, cold and misty. In between were realms of giants, elves, and other beings, 9 worlds in all, each distinct yet connected by the world tree's living framework. To the Norse mind, existence wasn't a single sphere, but a collection of intertwined realms. A person living in Midgard might never physically travel to Asgard or Jotunheim, but these places were an accepted part of the cosmos, as real as the ground underfoot. In ancient Egypt, too, the cosmos was layered and complex. The Egyptians spoke of the Duat, a mysterious realm of the afterlife. When the sun set in the west, they believed it was entering the Duat, travelling through a hidden world beneath the horizon. Through the long night, the sun god Ra would sail on an underground river, facing serpents and trials, to emerge reborn at dawn. The souls of the dead also had to journey through this otherworldly Duat, navigating its dangers with the help of spells and guidance from sacred texts. Though the Duat was invisible to the living, it was mapped and described in detail on tomb walls and papyrus scrolls. It was another world parallel to the land of Egypt, a place one might reach after death, as certain and vivid to the Egyptians as the Nile or the desert. Across the ancient world, similar ideas took shape. The Greeks told of Hades, the shadowy realm where souls went after their time on earth was over. Heroes like Odysseus and Orpheus, in their stories, dared to venture into that land of shades and return, bringing back the eerie knowledge that beyond the sunlight of our world lies a vast, unseen kingdom. In India, the concept of multiple realms was highly developed. Ancient Hindu cosmology described 14 worlds stacked vertically, 7 higher heavenly realms and 7 lower ones, with our earthly world somewhere in the middle. Gods, humans, demons, and spirits each had their own regions in this grand cosmic tower. To step outside our ordinary plane was to enter one of these other strata of reality, whether a heavenly paradise or an underworld domain. Some of these other realms were seen as places of reward or punishment, like the many heavens and hells imagined in various religions. Others were simply different territories of existence, homes of different beings, parallel to humanity. The Celtic peoples, for instance, believed in another world, a magical land often described as lying beyond a veil or across the sea. In Irish legend, the other world could be reached by entering ancient burial mounds or by wandering into mist-shrouded islands. It was a place of eternal summer, feasting, and strange passage of time, a realm existing alongside our own, normally hidden from sight. In these stories, time often flowed differently. A visitor might spend what feels like days in the other world, then return to find that years or centuries had passed back home. Now and then, a fortunate or unfortunate soul might stumble into that realm and experience wonders or dangers before returning to tell the tale. Across cultures, we see a similar conviction that unseen worlds lie alongside our own. The Maya, for example, spoke of multiple layers of heaven above and multiple layers of underworld below, each populated by deities or ancestral spirits and connected to our world through sacred portals. Many indigenous traditions describe spirit realms accessible only by shamans in dreams or trance. These realms, whether the ancestral lands of the Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime or the vision worlds of other native peoples, are treated as real places that one's spirit can visit. Buddhist and Jain cosmologies likewise map out vast universes with multiple levels of existence and countless cycles of time. A cosmos much larger than what meets the eye, filled with heavens, hells, and myriad world systems. In all these varied stories and systems, the message echoes. The visible, physical world is only part of a much richer and more complex reality. These myths and legends gave shape to an intuition that the reality we know might just be part of a much larger picture. The visible world was bounded by horizons, the horizon of the ocean, the horizon of life and death. But storytellers imagined what lay beyond those horizons. Often they peopled those other realms with the divine or the departed, with monsters or angels, reflecting both hopes and fears. In doing so, they acknowledge something profound. It's a big cosmos, full of unknowns, and perhaps we are not alone in it. Even in ancient times, there were those who wondered not only about spiritual realms, but about other physical worlds. As they observed the stars moving across the sky, some asked, "Are those points of light other fires, other suns? Do they have their own lands and people?" In Greece, a few bold thinkers proposed that the universe might be infinite, and that innumerable worlds could exist out in the vastness. To most people, these ideas must have sounded like wild speculation. After all, the common view in many cultures was that the world had a definite structure. The earth here, the heavens above, a limited cosmos arranged by the gods. An infinite expanse with countless worlds challenged that tidy picture. But the seed of the idea had been planted. The notion that beyond what we see, beyond the edges of our maps, there could be other worlds as real as our own. Meanwhile, other traditions took infinity in a different direction. Rather than imagining countless worlds spread out in space, they imagined worlds spread out in time. Ancient India, in particular, held the concept of cosmic cycles. The universe was said to go through endless rounds of birth, death, and rebirth. According to Hindu cosmology, vast epochs called kalpas unfold, each lasting billions of years. At the end of a kalpa, the universe dissolves, only to be created anew in the next cycle. In one evocative myth, the god Vishnu lies asleep on an eternal ocean, and as he breathes, universes form and dissolve with each breath, each exhalation creating a multitude of bubble-like universes that float for a cosmic age. And then, as Vishnu inhales, those bubbles collapse back into nothingness. In this story, our own universe is just one bubble among countless others, flickering in and out of existence in the timeless breathing of the divine. It's a powerful poetic image. Reality as an unending ocean of worlds, coming and going without beginning or end. Such concepts show that the idea of multiple worlds, whether simultaneous or sequential, is not new. Long before modern science fiction or multiverse theories, humans imagined an abundance of worlds beyond our own. Sometimes they framed it in terms of spiritual realms or layered heavens and hells, sometimes in terms of repeating creations and destructions of one cosmos after another, and sometimes, albeit rarely, in terms of a plurality of worlds scattered throughout the infinite expanse. Take a metaphor from ancient Buddhist thought, Indra's net. In an old Buddhist sutra, the cosmos is likened to a vast net stretching infinitely in all directions. At each knot of the net, there hangs a shining jewel. If you look closely into one jewel, you can see the reflections of all the other jewels within it, each reflection containing the reflections of all others, and so on, to infinity. This was a way to express the idea of a boundless universe filled with countless interrelated parts, or one might say, countless worlds, each reflecting every other. It's a beautiful image of infinity, a universe of mirrors within mirrors, worlds within worlds, without end. For the people who preserved these stories and ideas, the existence of other worlds was often a matter of faith or imagination, not empirical proof. They couldn't travel to these realms in a physical sense, except in legends, but they traveled in their minds. Through myth, ritual, and philosophy, they explored what those other planes might be like. These explorations of the ancient mind laid the groundwork for how later generations would think about the cosmos. The seed of the multiverse was there, quietly planted in the rich soil of myth and early thought. The suggestion that reality, in all its grandeur, might exceed the confines of one single world. As time went on, human curiosity only grew. The question remained, echoing through the ages. If other worlds exist, what are they like? Are they mere fantasy, or could some version of them be real? To approach these questions, thinkers gradually moved from the realm of myth into the realm of philosophy and reason, trying to make sense of the idea of infinite worlds using logic and observation. The story of otherworldly theories was about to take a new turn, from the epic of myth to the inquiry of the mind. As the age of myth gave way to the age of reason, the question of other worlds did not disappear. Instead, it took on new forms. Philosophers in various cultures began to ask, not just with wonder, but with logic, could there be more to reality than what we see? Could multiple worlds exist, governed by the same natural laws or divine principles that rule our own? In ancient Greece, this debate became especially lively. One group of thinkers, the atomists, boldly claimed that our universe was infinite and teeming with other worlds. According to Democritus and later Epicurus, the cosmos was an endless void filled with tiny atoms swirling and combining. In such an infinite expanse, they reasoned, it would be absurd for atoms to form only one world. Why not countless others? And so they taught that there are infinitely many worlds, some perhaps like our own Earth, with people and animals, and others perhaps quite different, all born from the eternal dance of atoms in the void. This idea of infinite worlds was astonishing for its time. It stood in stark contrast to the view of philosophers like Aristotle, who asserted that there was a single, finite cosmos, with Earth at its center and the heavens wrapped around it. Aristotle's model left no room for other independent worlds. Everything that existed was part of one grand structure. His influence was so great that for many centuries, the Aristotelian view became almost synonymous with the rational understanding of the universe. Yet the seed planted by the atomists never entirely died out. Lucretius, a Roman poet and follower of Epicurus, wrote vividly of other worlds in his epic poem on the nature of things, keeping the idea alive in literary form. He asked his readers to imagine the vastness of space and to consider that nothing in nature is unique, that life, sky and earth could appear elsewhere in the boundless cosmos. Beyond Greece and Rome, similar philosophical questions were arising. In ancient India, for example, philosophers of the Jain and Hindu traditions contemplated an unending cosmos with innumerable realms and cycles. Some early Jain writings suggested the universe is vast and eternal, filled with countless concentric worlds where life exists, separated by great distances or dimensions. In the medieval Islamic world, scholars like Fakhr al-Din al-Razi pondered the meaning of a phrase in the Quran that speaks of God as Lord of the worlds. Could it mean that God created multiple worlds beyond this one? Al-Razi dared to argue that nothing in Scripture definitively limits creation to a single world, that there might be a plurality of cosmic systems, each with its own earth and sky. Such speculation was rare and bold for the time, pushing the boundaries of accepted cosmology under a religious framework. Meanwhile, another kind of other world occupied the minds of philosophers. These were not physical planets or universes, but realms of pure thought or spiritual reality. The Greek philosopher Plato proposed that everything in our material world is a shadow or reflection of ideal forms that exist in a higher, immaterial realm. In Plato's philosophy, if you look at a tree or a horse or a circle drawn in the sand, you are seeing an imperfect instance of an ideal tree, horse, or circle that exists beyond the physical world. That higher realm of forms was, in a sense, another reality, invisible and timeless, but ultimately more real and perfect than the world of our senses. To Plato and his followers, our everyday world was just one layer of reality, and a truer world lay beyond, accessible only through the mind and philosophical insight. Ideas like Plato's influenced religious and mystical thought for centuries. Christian theologians spoke of the earthly city versus the city of God, a perfect heavenly world. Gnostic sects imagined a flawed material world and a pure spiritual realm beyond it. These weren't other worlds in the sense of other universes with stars and mountains, but they carried forward the notion that what we perceive is not all that exists. Reality might have hidden levels or parallel aspects, whether in heaven or in a metaphysical dimension. Yet as the Renaissance dawned in Europe and new horizons opened, the conversation swung back toward the stars. In the 15th and 16th centuries, a few brave thinkers resurrected the ancient idea of many worlds in a literal, cosmic sense. Cardinal Nicholas of Cusa suggested that the stars in the night sky could be other suns, each possibly the center of its own world, and that no single spot in the universe is truly the center. Not long after, the Dominican friar Giordano Bruno took the idea even further and more fervently. Bruno declared that the universe has no edge or boundary. It is infinite and filled with innumerable stars and planets. He believed that on some of those infinite worlds there could be living beings, perhaps even beings like ourselves. To Bruno, this grand vision of an infinite creation was a testament to the infinite power and majesty of the divine. If God is limitless, Bruno argued, why would he create only a finite, limited world? An infinite God would naturally bring forth an infinite universe, with endless expressions of life. Bruno's ideas were poetic and ahead of their time, but they were also dangerous in an age when established doctrine held that only one world, ours, was the center of God's attention. His claims challenged deeply held beliefs about humanity's unique place in creation. Bruno was eventually tried for heresy by the Inquisition and met a tragic end. He was burned at the stake in the year 1600, in part for his cosmological beliefs. But his bold imagination was not in vain. In the centuries that followed, as science advanced, many of Bruno's once outrageous ideas came to be taken more seriously, though often without direct credit to him. The telescope revealed that our planet is indeed not the center of the universe, just one world among many orbiting the sun. Then it was discovered that even the Sun is just one star among uncountable others in the galaxy. And later still, that our galaxy is one among billions. With each leap, the scale of the cosmos grew, and the idea of a plurality of worlds became not only plausible, but almost inevitable. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the notion of multiple worlds was commonplace among educated people. Writers and philosophers speculated freely about life on other planets, orbiting distant stars. The universe had become a much bigger place in human thought than the ancients had imagined in concrete terms. Yet despite this expansion, these were still worlds within one shared physical universe, the same grand creation, just more populous and widespread than previously assumed. The idea of fundamentally separate universes, multiple realities that are not just distant in space, but perhaps different in nature or set apart on another plane, was still mostly the realm of metaphysics and fantasy, not mainstream science. However, the groundwork was laid. Humanity had accepted that the Earth was not unique, that our world was one of many. This shift in perspective was crucial. It prepared us to ask even bolder questions. If there can be many planets and many stars, why not many universes? If our place in the cosmos is not central, could it be that our entire cosmos is just one part of an even vaster, more diverse existence? The philosophical willingness to entertain multiple worlds set the stage for the next chapter of exploration. That next chapter would unfold not just in scholarly treatises, but also in the imaginative realms of storytelling, and eventually in the theories of modern science. But before science would fully grapple with the possibility of a multiverse, the human imagination took flight in new ways, crafting tales of parallel realities and alternate worlds that stretched the mind even further. The concept of otherworlds was about to step beyond philosophical discourse and into the vibrant world of fiction and speculation, carrying the torch of curiosity forward. By the turn of the modern age, the idea of otherworlds was no longer confined to philosophical treatises or sacred cosmologies. It began to blossom in the realm of storytelling and imagination, where there were no limits to where one could travel. Through tales and fables, novels and poems, people could explore parallel realities and alternate histories as if strolling through a garden of possibilities. The human imagination proved to be fertile ground for the multiverse, long before the word multiverse was coined. From the 17th century onward, writers began crafting deliberate fantasies about journeys to other worlds. One early example came in 1666, when Margaret Cavendish, a duchess and philosopher, penned a remarkable story titled The Blazing World. In that tale, a young woman discovers a portal at the North Pole and finds herself in a bizarre new world joined to our own, populated by talking animals and governed by different laws. Cavendish's imaginative leap was centuries ahead of its time. She painted a reality adjacent to ours, reachable through a hidden doorway. It was arguably one of the first works of fiction to depict a visit to another world entirely separate from Earth, not as a heavenly realm or a mythic land, but as a place like ours in some ways, and fantastically different in others. As exploration and science expanded our understanding of the Earth, fiction writers pushed beyond Earth altogether. In the Victorian era, with science fiction emerging as a new genre, authors sent their protagonists to the moon, to Mars, and beyond, sometimes by rocket, sometimes by more fanciful means. While those were often voyages within our universe, the sense of encountering the other civilizations, other environments, was a strong theme. It wasn't long before writers took the next step, not just traveling in space, but travelling sideways in reality itself. In 1865, Lewis Carroll enchanted the world with Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, followed by Through the Looking Glass a few years later. These classic tales aren't about other planets, but they masterfully explore the idea of alternate realities. Alice steps through an ordinary mirror hanging on the wall and finds that on the other side is a world both familiar and absurdly different from her own. Cats can vanish, leaving only their grins behind. Queens can turn into chess pieces, and logic itself dances with nonsense. Carroll's mirror world was a playful fantasy, yet it tapped into an age-old curiosity. What if, just out of sight, there's a place where everything is a reflection of here, but changed in unexpected ways? The image of the mirror as a portal became an enduring symbol of parallel worlds, an invitation to imagine that every mirror might be a door to another inverted universe. Around the same time, other storytellers were also flirting with the idea of hidden worlds. Consider the notion of a lost or hidden land. It's not quite a parallel universe, but it echoes the same longing for the other place just beyond reach. In 1900, L. Frank Baum published The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, where a Kansas farm girl named Dorothy is whisked by a cyclone to the magical land of Oz. Oz is not presented as another planet or heaven. It's simply somewhere over the rainbow, a place accessible by extraordinary happenstance. There Dorothy encounters witches and talking scarecrows and tin men, a realm with its own rules and logic. Like Wonderland, Oz suggests that extraordinary worlds might exist alongside the mundane, separated by only a thin curtain of chance or magic. Decades later, in the 1950s, C.S. Lewis would similarly whisk children from a quiet country house into a magical realm in the Chronicles of Narnia, where a wardrobe in an old home serves as a portal to a fantastic parallel world. Once again, the message was that extraordinary realms might hide just out of sight, perhaps through the next door or at the back of a closet, waiting to be discovered. By the 20th century, parallel worlds found a natural home in the burgeoning genre of science fiction. Freed from needing literal magic, writers used speculative science to imagine doorways to other dimensions. The idea of a fourth dimension, an extra direction in space beyond up-down, left-right, and forward-back, captivated many early 20th century thinkers and authors. If such a higher dimension existed, perhaps one could slip between alternate planes of existence by moving along this unseen axis. Stories were written about people who stumbled into the fourth dimension and found worlds that no ordinary explorer could ever reach. This was a time when the boundaries of reality seemed to be expanding. Einstein's theories of relativity were changing notions of space and time, and quantum physics was revealing weird, unseen layers to the fabric of the world. In the cultural imagination, these scientific revolutions opened new pathways for dreaming about parallel worlds. By mid-century, parallel universes were not just a fanciful notion, but a familiar trope. In comic books, for instance, the idea of a multiverse of many Earths became a playground for creativity. Superheroes who originally lived in separate storylines were reimagined as existing on alternate Earths, each with its own history. The Flash could vibrate his molecules and travel to a mirror image Earth. Superman might meet another version of himself from a world where history took a different turn. These playful scenarios introduced a generation of readers to the concept that reality could have many layers, many versions of itself, coexisting like pages in a never-ending book. Science fiction literature delved even deeper. Writers began explicitly exploring alternate history, worlds where one crucial event happened differently, spawning a whole new timeline. What if the Axis powers had won the Second World War? What if electricity had never been harnessed? Or if the dinosaurs never went extinct? By imagining such divergences, authors created richly detailed alternate worlds that reflected our own back at us, with intriguing differences. These stories often carried profound questions. How much of history is chance? How much of our lives is shaped by the choices and accidents of the past? If we could peek into a parallel timeline, would we find better versions of our world, or worse? That concept of alternate history goes back very far. Even the Roman historian Livy mused about how events might have unfolded differently had Alexander the Great lived longer and marched west, an ancient what-if scenario. In modern times, one famous example of alternate history is Philip K. Dick's novel, The Man in the High Castle, 1962, which paints a chilling picture of an Earth where World War II ended differently, and the globe is divided under totalitarian powers. Reading it, one feels the uncanniness of a world that is recognizable and yet fundamentally altered. It's like looking at our reality in a distorted mirror. The geography, the politics, even the everyday culture have all changed, yet echoes of our world remain. Such stories brought the multiverse concept down to earth, making it tangible and personal. They suggested that for every choice or chance event, there might be another world where things went the other way. Another visionary, Jorge Luis Borges, took a more abstract approach in his short story, The Garden of Forking Paths, 1941, which describes a novel that can follow every possible outcome. In Borges' labyrinthine vision, time itself continually branches into different futures, a hauntingly beautiful metaphor for parallel realities. Parallel worlds also appeared in more metaphysical guises. Some narratives proposed that alternate universes might be separated from ours, not by physical distance, but by fragile barriers of perception or consciousness. In the early 20th century, H.P. Lovecraft wrote of dreamlands, entire realms one could enter through dreams, which existed somewhere on the fringe of reality. In these stories, a sleeping adventurer could wander through places no waking person could visit, gorgeous cities bathed in eternal twilight, or cosmic abysses with colours unseen in our world. Upon waking, it all vanished like a mirage, leaving one to wonder whether those places had been real in some other sense. Such tales invite us to consider that the mind itself might be a gateway to other planes of existence. Nor were these ideas limited to the page. Concepts of parallel realities found their way into theatre and cinema as soon as technology allowed. By the latter half of the 20th century, television shows and movies were featuring storylines where characters slipped into alternate timelines or mirror universes. Audiences watched beloved heroes contend with worlds where everything was changed. Perhaps a friend now wore the face of an enemy, or a small change in the past had snowballed into a dramatically different present. These plots thrilled and intrigued viewers, playing with the notion that at any moment reality might fork and lead into a place startlingly unlike the one we know. The enduring appeal of these tales lies in a blend of escapism and insight. On one hand, parallel worlds offer endless wonder, a creative playground where we can experience scenarios that defy the limits of our ordinary lives. On the other hand, they hold up a mirror to our own world, highlighting how contingent and precious our reality is. We come away from such stories both entertained and thoughtful. Could things have been different? Are there parts of ourselves, paths we didn't take, that continue on in some alternate world? It's a dizzying idea, yet in a strange way, comforting. It suggests that no possibility is ever truly lost. It might live on elsewhere, in the vast library of worlds. By the end of the 20th century, the idea of parallel universes had seeped deep into popular consciousness. The phrase "in a parallel universe" became a casual way to talk about things that might have been. The groundwork was so well laid in the imagination that when scientists and mathematicians began to discuss the prospect of multiple universes in serious terms, the public was ready to hear it. What once resided in myths and fairy tales, the notion of a world next door to our own, was now familiar and intriguing rather than outrageous. Through the arts and storytelling, humanity had already rehearsed the concept of a multiverse in an emotional and intellectual sense, long before turning it into a scientific hypothesis. Each fantastical journey through a looking glass or magical wardrobe, every tale of diverging history or secret dream realm, served to normalize the idea that reality might be far more layered than it seems. So when modern physics came knocking with theories that sounded as strange as fiction, we were prepared to listen, our minds already stretched by imaginative exercises. The stage was set for the old dreams of many worlds to meet the methods of science. In the coming era, ancient speculation and modern experimentation would converge on the idea of the multiverse, these mirrors of infinity that might reflect not only our universe, but countless others. With our imaginations primed by story and myth, we turn now to the realm of science to explore how contemporary thinkers transformed those age-old musings into concrete theories. The journey from myth to multiverse is about to enter its next act, where the question, "What if there are other worlds?" moves from fanciful wonder into the investigations of cosmology and quantum physics. The mystery that once lived in sacred stories and bedtime tales has found a new home in the equations and observations of science, as we strive to find out whether those parallel realities might truly exist, somewhere out there, or perhaps woven into the very fabric of the reality we know. For generations, the idea of multiple worlds lived only in myths, philosophy, and imaginative fiction. But as the 20th century gave way to the 21st, these age-old dreams found new life in the equations and experiments of science. The conversation about other worlds shifted from the campfire to the laboratory, from the pages of storybooks to the pages of scientific journals. It was as though the long speculation from ancient times had been a prelude, and now humanity began to seriously ask, could the multiverse be real? One of the leading inspirations for a scientific multiverse comes from cosmology, the study of the universe's origin and structure. In the 1980s, physicists developed the theory of cosmic inflation. This theory suggests that a tiny fraction of a second after the Big Bang, our universe underwent an unimaginably rapid expansion, blowing up from subatomic size to astronomical scale almost instantaneously. Inflation helps explain why our universe looks so uniform and smooth in all directions. But some versions of inflation theory have an extraordinary implication. They predict that inflation didn't happen uniformly everywhere. Instead, while our own region of spacetime stopped inflating and formed the universe we see, other regions might have continued inflating or started and stopped at different times, giving rise to other bubble universes. In this picture, reality is like an ever-expanding foam, with each bubble in the foam a distinct universe. Our universe would be just one bubble among countless others, all embedded in a larger cosmic space that is stretching and budding off new universes all the time. Imagine a pot of boiling water, with new bubbles constantly forming, each bubble its own self-contained world. This scenario is often called eternal inflation, meaning inflation goes on forever in different patches of the cosmos, spawning universe after universe. Some bubbles might eventually collide or influence each other if they come close, while others drift indefinitely apart, Each universe bubble could have its own properties, its own laws of physics, or types of particles, depending on the conditions under which it formed. The idea is breathtaking. Beyond the observable stars and galaxies we can see, there could be entirely separate universes, unreachable and perhaps unaware of one another, each a sovereign cosmos in its own right. Another path to the multiverse arises from the mysteries of quantum physics. In the mid-20th century, physicists struggled with the strange fact that at the subatomic level, particles don't seem to have single definite states until they are measured or observed. Instead, they exist in a haze of possibilities. A particle can be here and there at once, almost as if reality itself hasn't decided yet. To make sense of this, a radical interpretation was proposed in 1957 by a young physicist named Hugh Everett. His idea later became known as the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Everett suggested that when a quantum event happens, say, a particle could decay or not decay, the universe might split into multiple branches, one for each possible outcome. In one branch, the particle decays. In another, it does not. According to this view, every time a choice or chance event occurs at the quantum level, which is essentially all the time, everywhere, reality branches into alternatives. If this interpretation is true, it remains unproven, though it is taken seriously by many physicists. Then the structure of reality is like an ever-branching tree, or a river splitting into countless streams. At every moment, myriad new universes blossom, each representing different outcomes of events. In one universe branch, a comet strikes a planet and wipes out life. In another, it misses. In one, you might choose a different career. In another, perhaps you stayed on a different path. In one branch, the famous Schrödinger's cat lives. In another branch, the cat doesn't. According to many worlds, both universes are equally real, but unable to interact once they split. This idea gives a kind of scientific backbone to the fanciful what-ifs that storytellers love. It implies that somewhere, everything that can happen does happen. The multiverse, in this quantum sense, is not an expanse of distant bubbles in space, but a constantly unfolding multitude of realities stacked atop one another. While the inflationary multiverse and the quantum many worlds are two of the most discussed scientific multiverse ideas, they aren't the only ones. Theoretical physics has opened other windows onto possible other universes. String theory, an ambitious framework that attempts to unify all the forces of nature, predicts extra dimensions of space beyond the three we experience. Our universe could be like a three-dimensional membrane, brain for short, floating in a higher dimensional space. Some physicists have imagined that there could be other brains, essentially other three-dimensional universes, parallel to ours in this higher dimensional expanse. In this scenario, our world and a parallel world could be as close as a millimeter away in a dimension we can't perceive, like two sheets of paper pressed nearly flush together, each sheet unaware of the other because all its creatures are stuck on their own page. Occasionally, perhaps, these brains might interact. Some have speculated that a collision between brains could have caused the Big Bang that birthed our universe, or that a gentle proximity between brains might allow gravity to leak subtly from one universe to another. Such ideas remain highly speculative, but they offer a tantalizing vision of parallel worlds, literally side by side. String theory also implies a vast landscape of possible universes, even without the brain picture. The equations have many possible solutions, corresponding to different ways the extra dimensions could be curled up, or different values for fundamental constants. Our universe might be just one out of an almost unimaginably large number of potential universes, each with its own distinct physics. Why does our universe have the specific properties it does? For example, a certain speed of light, certain strengths of forces, certain types of particles. One answer the multiverse offers is, maybe every possible set of properties exists somewhere among the multitude of universes, and we find ourselves in this particular one, simply because it's one of the rare universes that can support life. Naturally, we observe this universe because in the ones where conditions were wrong for life, no one is around to observe anything. This reasoning is known as the anthropic principle, and it becomes a lot more tangible in a multiverse context, where there are countless cosmic lottery tickets. We happen to draw a winning ticket that allowed galaxies, stars, planets, and eventually living beings to exist. Beyond these physics-based multiverse ideas, some have proposed even more mind-bending possibilities that verge on philosophy. One suggestion is that perhaps our universe itself is not the base reality, but a kind of simulation, an artificial world generated by an intelligence in some other higher reality. If that were true, and it's certainly a speculative idea, then other universes might exist as other simulations or as the outside reality beyond our simulated confines. It's a modern twist on the old question of whether our world is an illusion. Like a cosmic hall of mirrors, one reality could nest inside another. While the simulation hypothesis isn't a testable scientific theory and remains in the realm of conjecture, it adds to the rich tapestry of otherworldly theories. It reminds us that the notion of unseen worlds can take many forms, from physical bubble universes and quantum branches to philosophical ponderings about the nature of reality itself. All these concepts are bold extensions of our cosmic perspective. They're attempts to solve deep puzzles, like what happened at the birth of our universe, or how to reconcile quantum uncertainty, by suggesting that what we've long taken to be the universe might be just a piece of a far larger and more varied ensemble. It's important to note, however, that as of now, these remain theories and hypotheses. Unlike the moons of Jupiter or the depths of the ocean, these other universes, if they exist, are not something we can directly observe or visit. That raises a challenge. How can science, which relies on testing ideas against evidence, deal with a concept that might be forever outside direct observation? This is a lively debate. Some scientists argue that if a theory like inflation predicts a multiverse as a natural consequence, and if that theory correctly explains other things we can observe, like certain patterns in the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, then we have reason to take its other predictions seriously, even the unobservable ones. Others are more skeptical, countering that we should be cautious about embracing ideas that might always elude confirmation. Still, researchers are trying to find creative ways to gather clues. For instance, they have suggested that if another bubble universe had collided with ours in the distant past, it might have left a subtle mark, perhaps a circular pattern or ripple in the cosmic microwave background, a sort of bruise in the sky from an ancient inter-universal encounter. Teams of astronomers have actually searched the sky maps for such patterns. So far, none have been conclusively found, but the searches continue. Another proposal is that a collision between universes could create a specific kind of gravitational wave signal, faint tremors in the fabric of spacetime, that we might detect with sensitive instruments. On the quantum side, some wonder if the many worlds interpretation could be tested indirectly by certain quantum experiments or through the emerging field of quantum computing. As of today, no definitive sign of another universe has been detected. But the very act of looking, of even formulating these hypotheses in a way that we can try to test, shows how seriously the idea is being taken at the frontiers of knowledge. It's a remarkable turn of events. The concept of other universes has moved from the realm of pure fantasy into a topic of reasoned discourse among scientists. And in doing so, science has, in a way, looped back to themes that enchanted our distant ancestors. When cosmologists speak of a potentially infinite expanse of bubble universes, one can't help but think of ancient Indian cosmologies with their infinite cycles of creation. Or when physicists talk about quantum branches, we recall the musings of philosophers about every choice birthing a new world and the whimsical fiction of parallel lives. When scientists speculate about parallel brains or layered dimensions, we might even remember Indra's net of jewels from Buddhist lore, each jewel reflecting countless others in an infinite web of connection. The language is different, and the methods are grounded in mathematics and empirical reasoning, but the imaginative leap is similar. We find ourselves grappling with the same fundamental wonder, the scope of existence, and whether what we have long called everything might actually be just one part of a much greater tapestry. Throughout history, every time we thought we'd reached the edge of reality, the horizon expanded. We once believed the Earth was the whole world, until we discovered that Earth is one planet among many. We thought our sun was a special center of the cosmos, until we realized it's just one star out of billions in our galaxy. Then we learned that even our galaxy is one among countless others adrift in a vast cosmos. Each time, our perspective broadened, and our sense of uniqueness had to shrink. But our awe at the grandness of the cosmos grew. The multiverse, if it is real, would be the ultimate expansion of perspective. It would mean that the trillions of galaxies in our observable universe are but an infinitesimal drop in an ocean of universes. It would mean that creation's potential is truly boundless, spilling over into endlessly varied realities. How would that make us feel? In one sense, it's humbling to imagine that our entire universe, with all its billions of years and countless stars, might be just one grain of sand on an infinite beach. It can make everything we know seem both more precious and, at the same time, strangely small. But there is also a kind of excitement and comfort in the idea that existence has so many forms. If the multiverse is real, then in the grand scheme, we are part of a far larger cosmic community, even if we can never meet our neighbors. And if there are other versions of us, other paths not taken that do play out in parallel realms, it suggests that the universe explores every possibility. In a peculiar way, that means no opportunity is ever entirely lost. It might exist somewhere, in some other world. On the other hand, if the multiverse remains forever unconfirmed, if it's something we can never prove, it still serves a profound purpose. It challenges our imagination and reminds us that reality might have more surprises in store than we ever thought. Even if we never find evidence, asking the question expands our minds. It encourages a cosmic humility, a recognition that the story of existence could be far more elaborate than the slice we see. And it inspires gratitude for the universe we do have, this one wondrous reality that, even if it turns out to be alone, is vast and rich enough to fill us with wonder. As part one of our journey closes, we find ourselves at a threshold of understanding and mystery. We have peered through ancient mythic visions, followed the thread through philosophical debates, wandered the fanciful tales of literature, and finally stepped into the frontiers of modern science. Each of these domains, in its own language and style, has suggested that our reality might not be alone. They are like mirrors, reflecting one another, the mythic reflecting the scientific, and vice versa. each giving us a glimpse of endless possibilities beyond the known. Yet, for all the theories and stories, the multiverse remains an open question. It dwells at the edges of what we can empirically know, and perhaps forever at the edges of what we can imagine. That uncertainty is not a defeat, but rather a space for wonder. It means the story isn't over. As long as humans continue to gaze into the dark reaches of space, or into the deep mysteries of the atom, as long as we continue to dream and to reason, the allure of other worlds will persist. We will keep crafting new ideas, new experiments, and new narratives to chase this mirage of infinity. In the end, whether or not there are countless other universes, the quest to find out teaches us a great deal. It teaches us to question the limits of our understanding, to remain open to the unexpected, and to appreciate the universe we have. Even if our universe stands alone, it is a thing of immense splendor, almost infinite in the opportunities and experiences it offers. And if it does not stand alone, if one day we find evidence that ours is just one cosmos among many, that will simply be the next chapter in a very old story, a story of expanding horizons and the enduring human passion to explore the unknown. Standing here now, under the cosmic sky, or in the quiet sanctuary of our thoughts, we return to that feeling we started with, the whisper of infinity. It's the same feeling our ancestors had when they stared at the stars and wondered about gods and other realms, or when a child hears a fairy tale of a hidden kingdom and imagines it might be real. It's a mixture of awe, curiosity, and a touch of mystery. The multiverse, real or not, is like a mirror held up to that infinite yearning within us. It reflects our desire to know what lies beyond every horizon. In that mirror of infinity, reflecting the multitude of ideas we've encountered, we may also see ourselves more clearly. Our search for other worlds is, in a way, a search for understanding our own place in the vastness. The story continues, and as we move forward, we carry with us the echo of countless possibilities, a gentle reminder that reality, like a pair of mirrors facing each other, might just stretch on forever, inviting us to wonder without end. On a clear, still night, you stand beneath a canopy of stars. The air is cool and quiet. Above you, countless stars are scattered across the darkness like tiny beacons. As you gaze upward, you can't help but wonder how far that darkness extends. We peer into the night sky and see those countless stars shimmering in the silence. We see distant galaxies, faint glimmers, whose light has travelled for billions of years to reach us. Yet as far as we can see, there is a limit, a cosmic horizon beyond which even the brightest beacons remain invisible. Our universe has an edge, not of matter or walls, but of time and light. Beyond that boundary lies everything we cannot observe, shrouded in mystery by sheer distance and the finite speed of light. In fact, the farthest we can see in any direction is a faint, uniform glow left over from the birth of our universe. It's as if we are surrounded by a delicate fog of light, the afterglow of the Big Bang, marking the limits of our vision. Beyond that glow, the universe was once so hot and dense that light could not travel freely. That distant radiance is like a curtain drawn across the very early cosmos. It is a gentle reminder that even with our best instruments, we can only peer so far into space and time before the view is veiled by the infancy of everything. Out on a vast ocean, a sailor sees the horizon as a circle beyond which the sea disappears from view. No matter how far they sail, there is always another horizon ahead, hiding whatever lies further. In much the same way, we stand in the cosmic ocean, looking out at a horizon made not of water, but of light and time. We know intuitively that the cosmos doesn't end where our sight fails. Just as new lands may lie beyond the sea's horizon, new cosmic realms lie beyond the limits of our observation. We can't see them, but we sense that they are there, extending the universe far beyond the edge of what our telescopes can capture. For most of human history, the scale of the universe was unknown. Ancient stargazers saw the stars as a carpet of lights overhead, and many believed there were literal spheres or domes enclosing the heavens. The idea of a cosmic horizon has evolved with our understanding. Only a century ago, we discovered that our Milky Way galaxy is just one among countless others. Now we estimate that the observable universe holds trillions of galaxies, stretching across tens of billions of light years. It's an immense expanse, yet it could be merely a tiny portion of a far larger cosmos. Even as our knowledge expands, we keep finding that beyond each horizon lies another, and another, challenging any notion of a final boundary. Indeed, beyond the limits of our observation, space itself could stretch on without end. We have no reason to believe the cosmos stops at the farthest galaxy we can see. The universe likely extends outward, possibly infinitely, containing regions we will never behold. If we could magically travel beyond this horizon, we might find more galaxies and stars continuing on and on. It could be more of the same grand cosmic tapestry, stretching out endlessly like a vast ocean of galaxies. In that sense, our observable universe might be just one patch in an immeasurable expanse. In that endless extension, every possibility might exist somewhere. If space truly stretches on forever, then far beyond comprehension, there could be regions where the stars form patterns we would recognize. Given infinite chances, the random scatter of atoms and galaxies might even repeat by coincidence. Perhaps, impossibly remote from us, there is another patch of universe, almost like our own, a mirror of our world, with a star like our sun and a planet much like Earth. It's a strange thought that somewhere out there, the cosmos could have arranged itself in a familiar way, crafting echoes of what we know. Yet these distant mirrored worlds, if they exist, will forever remain beyond our reach. The light from those far-off regions may never reach us, not in the lifetime of the universe. They are cosmic phantoms, places that could be real, but which we can never confirm or touch. Still, the possibility stirs our imagination. It reminds us how small our view is compared to the grandeur that could lie beyond. Standing here on Earth, under a sky full of stars, we are peering through a tiny keyhole into an immeasurable mansion. Most of that mansion remains unseen, silent, and waiting beyond the horizon. Standing here on our small planet, it's both humbling and wondrous to realize how limited our view really is. We see so much, a vast span of galaxies, yet there is far more that we cannot see. Knowing that an unknown expanse lies beyond our cosmic horizon evokes a special kind of awe. It reminds us of our place in the universe, at once tiny, and yet part of something so much larger. We are like observers on a dark shore, with a great ocean of unseen worlds stretching out into the night, silent and unreachable, but undeniably there. The mystery of that unseen ocean invites our imagination to set sail, even if our ships of exploration cannot follow. The edge of our observable universe is not a solid barrier, but a limit set by time. From what we can tell, nothing magical marks that boundary. No abrupt change in the cosmic scenery. The laws of physics we know should continue to hold sway beyond our sight. Galaxies likely keep on drifting in the darkness. Stars continue to be born and die. Space keeps expanding. In our mind's eye, we can picture that continuity. An endless field of galaxies stretching far past our cosmic horizon, similar to the ones we see, just ever more distant. Our cosmic horizon is not a static boundary, it shifts over time. As the universe ages and expands, distant galaxies drift farther away. By then, nearly all other galaxies could have redshifted out of sight, carried away by expansion. The cosmic microwave background, that faint afterglow of creation, will have faded into undetectability. Future beings might look out and see mostly darkness, with perhaps only the decaying remnants of our own galaxy visible. They might not realize that once the universe was teeming with galaxies. In a sense, we are fortunate to exist at a time when the universe's past remains visible to us. The cosmic horizon is both a limit and a gift, allowing us a glimpse of the broader cosmos before it vanishes over the horizon of time. Until now, we have pictured other universes as far-flung bubbles, separated from us by unimaginable expanses. But distance might not be the only thing that keeps universes apart. Some visions of the multiverse suggest that other worlds could be hidden right alongside our own, not distant in space, but in a different kind of separation. To explore that idea, we must turn our minds to dimensions beyond those we can see, to realms that may be superimposed with ours, yet remain invisible and inaccessible. Far beyond the borders of our visible cosmos, some scientists imagine a realm where countless universes float like bubbles in a vast cosmic sea. In this vision, our entire universe is just one bubble among a foam of many. How might such bubbles form? The idea comes from the earliest moments of creation, when space itself expanded at a mind-boggling rate. In that blistering instant, known as cosmic inflation, space could have stretched and grown unevenly, with pockets where the expansion slowed down and others where it raced ahead. Each pocket that slowed and cooled could become a bubble universe, blossoming into a distinct cosmos with its own stars and galaxies. This multiverse scenario is often compared to a pot of boiling water or a frothing foam. As water boils, bubbles form constantly and drift to the surface. In a similar way, as space inflates, new universe bubbles can pop into existence. Each bubble is separated by the still expanding space around it, just as bubbles in boiling water are separated by the water itself. We can also imagine the multiverse like an infinite champagne, with universes fizzing up endlessly like sparkling bubbles. It's a whimsical image, but it captures the idea of continuous creation, universes being born over and over in the great ferment of cosmic inflation. There is an almost mythic quality to the idea of bubble universes. Many ancient cultures imagined the cosmos emerging from a vast ocean or a cosmic egg, images of multiple worlds born from a primordial source. In a way, the modern scientific vision of eternal inflation has parallels. Instead of a literal ocean, we have an ever-expanding space. Instead of eggs or bubbles in water, we have universe bubbles forming in the fabric of space-time. The poetic resemblance is striking, an endless cosmic froth giving rise to universe after universe. It's a reminder that human imagination has long toyed with the concept of multiple worlds, and now our physics is exploring a similar theme in its own language. In this scenario, inflation is like an everlasting chain reaction. While one bubble universe forms and slows down to become a more stable cosmos, the space around it might still be inflating wildly. That inflating space can spawn more bubbles, and those in turn are surrounded by yet more rapidly stretching space. The process could be eternal, with new universes constantly budding off like foam on the crest of an unending wave. Our own universe, vast as it is, might be just one tiny bubble that emerged from this cosmic brew. And there could be countless others, forever beyond our reach, each sealed off by the continuous expansion of space between us. If we could step outside all of these universes and observe the multiverse from a God's eye view, what might we see? Perhaps an endless ocean of spacetime, stretching out in every direction, filled with countless cosmic bubbles. Each bubble glows with the light of its own galaxies, like tiny lanterns scattered in a boundless dark sea. New bubbles would be appearing here and there, blossoming like bright flowers and expanding swiftly. Others might be far away, rushing out of sight as space between them expands. From that lofty vantage, the multiverse would look alive and ever-changing, a never-ending fireworks display of big bangs, each one giving rise to a new universe. Of course, this is a metaphorical image, since we ourselves can never step outside our own bubble. But it helps to imagine the grandeur of a realm where universes are as common as stars, all floating in the vastness beyond our own. Inside each bubble universe, the conditions might be unique. When a bubble breaks off during inflation, it cools and develops on its own, potentially with different settings for the cosmic rules. Perhaps the forces of nature, the strengths of gravity, electromagnetism, and the nuclear forces took on different values in another bubble. Maybe the particles that form matter are different, or physics follows a slightly altered script. If so, some bubble universes could be strange and barren, with galaxies never forming or stars collapsing too quickly. Others might have exotic forms of matter, or even completely different dimensions of space. Each bubble is like a separate experiment in reality, a self-contained world governed by its own version of physics. Crucially, these bubble universes are thought to be utterly isolated from one another. The space between them is still stretching and growing. Even a beam of light, the fastest thing we know, would struggle to bridge that gap if space itself is racing outward faster and faster. In practical terms, no traveller, even one riding on a beam of light, could hop from our bubble into another. They are like separate islands in an ever-expanding ocean, drifting farther apart as time goes on. What happens in one bubble stays contained, its inhabitants, if any, never knowing of the oceans or other islands beyond their sky. From the inside, each bubble universe would feel like a complete cosmos in itself, much the way our universe feels to us. Intelligent beings, if they exist there, might develop their own astronomy, gazing out at their galaxies and wondering about the nature of their cosmos. Perhaps over centuries or millennia, this bright boundary would sweep through the cosmos, outshining galaxies with its brilliance. The night sky could turn strange, one half filled with familiar stars, the other half bathed in an eerie, uniform radiance from the collision. As the shockwave passed, it would alter everything in its path. For any beings in its way, it would be as if the laws of nature themselves were being rewritten. In truth, surviving such an event might be impossible, as the energy would be unsurvivable. But contemplating it gives a sense of just how momentous a universe collision would be, an event that dwarfs all other cosmic cataclysms. This dramatic scenario might sound like pure imagination, but scientists have actually searched for evidence that our universe experienced such a collision long ago. The idea is that if another bubble universe had bumped into ours in the distant past, it could have left a subtle mark. One place to look is the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of our Big Bang that permeates the sky. A collision might disturb that pattern, perhaps leaving a circular ripple or a spot that is warmer or cooler than expected. Some researchers have even claimed to see hints of these cosmic bruises in the background radiation, though the findings are inconclusive. Most likely, if collisions happened, their traces are faint and hard to distinguish from ordinary cosmic noise. As of now, no definitive sign of a universe collision has been confirmed. If one day a clear cosmic bruise were identified beyond doubt, it would be a revolutionary discovery. Direct evidence that we are not alone in the multiverse. It would mean that we carry the imprint of another universe in our sky, a tangible connection to a world outside our own. There is another way universes might collide, one that comes from theories of extra dimensions. In this picture, our universe is a membrane, or brain, floating in a higher dimensional space, as we considered before. If there are other brains, other universes, in that higher space, they could occasionally interact. Imagine two giant, invisible sheets representing universes, drifting through an extra dimension. If they drift into each other, the impact would be enormous. Some physicists have proposed that our own Big Bang might have been triggered by such a brain collision. Two universe brains could have crashed together, releasing energy and heat that created all the matter and radiation in our universe. In that view, what we call the Big Bang wasn't the absolute beginning of everything, but rather a transition caused by a cosmic collision. It's a radical idea. Our universe could have been born from the clash of two pre-existing worlds. In fact, some cosmologists have suggested that such brain collisions could be cyclic, meaning universes might periodically collide, bounce apart, and then collide again, creating an endless series of cosmic epochs. In this cyclic model, each Big Bang is not the beginning of everything, but rather one chapter in an infinite cosmic history of universes forming, evolving, and then perhaps going dormant until the next collision reignites them. If this were true, time and creation stretch far beyond the confines of our own universe's lifespan. Our Big Bang would be just one event in a potentially unending cycle, with no first beginning and no final end, only eternal rebirth through cosmic collisions. The idea of an endless series of cosmic cycles is not entirely new. Ancient philosophies and religions, such as those in Hindu cosmology, envisioned the universe undergoing infinite cycles of birth, destruction, and rebirth. In those traditions, time is a wheel turning forever, with no beginning or end. It's intriguing that modern cosmology's cyclic brain collision scenario echoes this age-old vision in a scientific context. In the ancient view, it was the breath of a deity, or the rhythm of cosmic time, whereas here, it's the motion of universe brains in higher dimensional space. But in both cases, the cosmos renews itself in cycles. It's interesting how modern theories can sometimes mirror the intuitions of long-ago thinkers, albeit in very different language. For now, if you're wondering whether a collision with another universe is something to worry about, it appears extremely unlikely any time in the foreseeable future, if ever. The separation between bubble universes and the dynamics of cosmic expansion mean that such events, if they happen at all, would be exceedingly rare. Our universe has been around for nearly 14 billion years and shows no clear sign of past collisions or imminent encounters. In all likelihood, if multiple universes exist, they will continue to drift undisturbed, each in its own vast domain, like ships passing in the night, far too distant to ever meet. So while the concept is fascinating, it's not a danger that looms in our daily sky. The notion of universes beyond our own, whether peacefully coexisting or dramatically colliding, leaves us with as many questions as answers. It expands our perspective to almost dizzying levels. If all these otherworldly theories turn out to hold truth, our reality is far stranger and more expansive than we ever imagined. We are compelled to ask, what does it all mean? Is there an underlying reason or design behind this multiverse? Or is it simply an endless expanse of possibilities? How do we, as human beings on one tiny planet, find meaning under a sky that might be just one of infinite skies? These questions take us beyond the realm of physics and into the realm of philosophy and reflection. Our journey through the multiverse is not just a scientific adventure, but a profoundly human one, touching on our desire to understand our origins and our significance. And even as we push against the boundaries of knowledge, the mystery deepens. In the end, the multiverse might be a mirror of infinity itself, showing us endless possibilities and challenging us to find our place among them. We continue onward, curious and humbled, as our exploration reaches into realms unknown. Our journey into the mysteries of reality now takes a turn, moving from the grand scale of the cosmos to the unseen world of the very small. Previously, we pondered the possibility of multiple universes on a cosmic stage. Now we find that even at the tiniest scales, nature hints at realities beyond the one we perceive. In the hushed twilight of a quiet laboratory, a single beam of light is aimed at a simple barrier with two narrow slits. What happens next defies common sense. On a screen behind the barrier, a pattern of light and dark stripes begins to appear, bands of brightness alternating with shadow. It looks as if each particle of light has travelled through both slits at the same time, weaving together waves that interfere with one another. But then something even stranger occurs. The moment we try to watch the particles closely, peeking to see which slit each one passes through, the delicate pattern abruptly changes. The stripes disappear, replaced by two solid bars of light. It's as though the act of observation itself has forced the particles to choose one slit or the other, but not both. Even more astonishing is what happens if you send the particles through the slits one at a time, with long pauses in between, so that no two particles are ever in the slits simultaneously. You might expect that with only single particles going through, they could not form an interference pattern, but they do. On the screen, dot by dot, a banded pattern emerges as you accumulate many particles. Each individual particle lands at a seemingly random spot, and only over time does a clear series of light and dark stripes materialize. It's as though each particle somehow passes through both slits as a spread-out wave, creating interference with itself, and then hits the screen as a localized point. The full pattern only becomes evident after many particles have made their marks. This remarkable result shows that even when isolated, each quantum particle behaves in a wave-like manner, exploring multiple possibilities at once until we observe where it finally ends up. This is the quantum enigma laid bare. At the smallest scales of reality, the rules we take for granted fall away. A tiny particle can behave like a spread-out wave, existing in many places at once. It follows every possible path open to it, exploring multiple options simultaneously, until we look. Only when measured or observed does the particle seem to make up its mind, snapping into a single, definite state. Before that moment, it dwells in a ghostly haze of possibilities, a superposition of all potential outcomes. Such behavior is completely foreign to our everyday experience. In the familiar world around us, objects have clear positions and definite states. A ball is either here or there, not somehow in both places at once. But in the quantum realm, the very concept of a clear, singular reality starts to blur. Reality, at this fundamental level, appears to be a shimmering spectrum of maybes rather than a solid, singular truth. It's as if the universe, at its core, is written in a language of perhaps and potential, only resolving into certainty when pressed by an inquisitive gaze. But even our attempts to measure things in the quantum world run into strange limits. If you try to precisely pin down one aspect of a particle, you find that another aspect becomes irretrievably fuzzy. There's a famous principle in quantum physics that says we cannot simultaneously know a particle's exact position and its exact momentum. The more clearly we determine where it is, the more uncertain we become about where it's going, and vice versa. It's not due to any flaw in our instruments. It seems to be a feature of reality itself. Nature hides some of the details when we focus too closely on others. This innate uncertainty is utterly unlike the solid predictability we expect from objects in our everyday world. This profound mystery unsettled even the brightest minds of the 20th century. The great physicist Albert Einstein was deeply troubled by the idea of randomness at nature's core. He famously protested, "God does not play dice with the universe," voicing his discomfort with the notion that chance could dictate fundamental outcomes. Yet experiment after experiment seemed to suggest that, indeed, on the quantum stage, probability reigns supreme. When confronted with Einstein's doubts, physicist Niels Bohr gently reminded him that our intuitions might simply not apply in this strange domain. The quantum world, Bohr believed, doesn't follow the strict logic of our everyday reality, and perhaps it was not our place to tell the universe how it should behave. Bohr is famously said to have replied to Einstein, "Stop telling God what to do." In other words, Bohr cautioned that we shouldn't expect nature to conform to our preconceived notions. He believed the quantum world simply followed its own rules. For Bohr and his followers, the apparent randomness and ambiguity weren't flaws in the theory, but fundamental truths about how the universe operates at small scales. Imagine, for a moment, peering into that hidden world of the very small. We find electrons dancing in and out of existence, here one instant and over there the next, as if teleporting when we're not looking. We find photons, those tiny particles of light, making choices based on whether we observe them or not. In this realm, cause and effect can seem blurred, and things that appear impossible by everyday standards happen routinely. It is a place where particles can become entangled, sharing a connection so deep that what happens to one instantly affects the other, even if they are separated by vast distances. It feels almost magical, yet it is how nature actually works at this level. Even Albert Einstein was unsettled by this phenomenon, skeptically referring to it as spooky action at a distance. And indeed, experiments have confirmed that this ghostly link is real. When one entangled particle is measured and takes on a definite state, its distant partner instantly settles into a compatible state, as if the two share an invisible connection that transcends space. To minds accustomed to the idea that nothing can influence anything else faster than the speed of light, this instantaneous coordination defies explanation. But it suggests that, in some subtle way, those particles were never truly separate. The more we learn about these quantum phenomena, the more we realize that our classical, common-sense picture of the world is only part of the story. The quantum enigma forces us to question the very meaning of reality. Is something only real when we observe it? What does it mean for a particle to be in a vague state of many possibilities? These questions have no easy answers. Physicists have pondered them for decades, crafting different interpretations of quantum mechanics in an effort to bridge the gap between the abstract mathematics and the solid reality we experience. Some have even wondered whether consciousness itself must be involved in this process of measurement, an idea that adds another layer of mystery. Could it be that the universe only decides on an outcome when a conscious mind is paying attention? That notion is controversial and far from proven, but it shows how perplexing this puzzle is, and how far we might have to stretch our concepts to grasp it. For now, what we know is that the quantum world behaves unlike anything we're used to. It is a realm of potentialities, where particles seem to explore all paths and possibilities and only settle on an outcome when forced to by an interaction with something else. It's as though nature keeps her options open at the deepest level, only committing to a specific reality when absolutely necessary. How, then, do we reconcile this strange behavior with the solid, concrete world we perceive around us? When countless uncertain particles come together to form the objects of our everyday life, tables and chairs, cats and people, somehow the certainty returns. We don't see tables that are both here and there at once. A cat is either awake or asleep, not a blurry mixture of the two. There must be a boundary somewhere, a transition from the fuzzy rules of the quantum realm to the crisp, definite rules of the classical world we experience. But where is that boundary? And what really happens when the quantum and everyday worlds meet? In the end, the quantum world leaves us with profound riddles. We find ourselves asking, is a particle's behavior truly undecided until the moment we observe it? Does the act of measurement create reality, as some interpretations suggest? Or does it merely reveal a reality that somehow exists in limbo until observed? How can something be here and there, or alive and dead at the same time, only to resolve when an observation is made? These questions strike at the very heart of what we mean by reality. To get a better grip on this enigma, one physicist dreamed up a scenario to bring the question out of the microscopic realm and into the everyday world. This is the tale of a cat, a sealed box, and a vial of poison. A thought experiment devised to make us confront the quantum enigma in perhaps the most visceral way. Picture a sturdy, sealed box resting on a table. Inside this closed chamber, hidden from your sight, lies a living cat, cozy and unaware. Beside the cat, there is a delicate glass vial of poison, and next to that, a tiny lump of radioactive material. This isn't a cruel prank, but a theoretical device set up to link the cat's fate to the invisible whims of the quantum world. If a single atom in that radioactive lump decays within a given time, a sensor detects it and triggers a hammer that shatters the vial of poison. In an instant, the released poison would silently end the cat's life. If the atom does not decay, the vial remains intact and the cat stays perfectly fine. Everything hinges on that subatomic event, something completely random and unpredictable. Now here is the strange part. According to quantum theory, before we check, that radioactive atom is in a kind of limbo. It's neither fully decayed nor fully intact. It exists as a possibility of both. In the eerie logic of the quantum realm, we would say the atom is in a superposition of two states, decayed and not decayed at once. And because the atom's fate is tied to the trigger, the poison, and the cat, The cat itself becomes entangled in this uncertainty. As long as the box stays sealed and no one peeks inside, the entire system, atom, vial, and cat, remains in a suspended, unresolved state. In essence, the cat is both alive and dead at the same time, at least from the perspective of the mathematics that describe it. It's a mind-boggling thought. A beloved pet trapped in a limbo between life and death, simply because the universe hasn't made up its mind yet. This is the famous thought experiment known as Schrödinger's cat, devised by the Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger in 1935. Schrödinger intended it as a provocative illustration of how absurd the rules of quantum mechanics can seem when applied to everyday objects. He imagined this scenario not to propose harming any real animal, certainly no actual cats were ever used in such an experiment, but to shine a spotlight on a problem. The paradox of the cat, simultaneously alive and dead until observed, was meant to challenge the prevailing interpretations of quantum physics, which seem to accept such a bizarre state of affairs without a clear explanation of how or when the multiple possibilities choose a single outcome. Think of the unsettling implications of this scenario. Inside the box, reality itself is on hold. From the outside, until we open the lid, we have no way of knowing whether the cat is alive or not. According to one way of thinking about quantum mechanics, the most straightforward interpretation at the time, before the box is opened, the cat isn't just unknown, it's truly in a mixed state of life and death. This defies everything we know about the way the world works. In everyday life, a cat is either one or the other, alive or dead, sleeping or awake. There's never an in-between. Yet here, the quantum perspective offers an almost supernatural-seeming in-between state that we can hardly wrap our minds around. It's as if the universe itself plays a game of chance behind closed doors. And only when we open those doors do we learn which hand it dealt. Let's pause to imagine that scenario more vividly. The box sits silently in a dimly lit room, giving no hint of what's happening inside. Somewhere within, a tiny radioactive atom may or may not have decayed. A lethal vial may or may not have been shattered. The cat inside goes about its quiet business. Perhaps it's curled up, purring softly in the darkness, or maybe it's pacing and meowing for attention. From the outside, you can't hear a sound. To an observer who knows the setup, this silence is haunting. The cat's fate hangs on the outcome of a subatomic coin flip. We might picture ourselves standing there, hand on the lid, heart hesitant. In our mind's eye we wonder, is the cat safe and warm, or has the worst already happened? And until we lift that lid, nature refuses to answer. It's more like a philosophical riddle, or a piece of speculative fiction, than a real experiment. Yet it perfectly captures the weirdness at the heart of quantum theory. If that idea sends a shiver down your spine, you're not alone. Schrödinger himself found the scenario grotesque. He devised the thought experiment in part to point out the ridiculousness of taking the quantum math too literally when it came to larger things. Surely, he thought, a cat cannot be both alive and dead at once in any meaningful sense. Something must happen in between the microscopic atom and the macroscopic cat that forces a resolution, one way or the other, before we ever look. But what is that something? At what point does the blurry ambiguity of quantum possibility give way to the single solid outcome we see in daily life? For a long time, physicists grappled with these questions. Some argued that the act of observation, the very moment a conscious mind, or even a measuring device, looks at the system, is what forces nature's decision. In that view, opening the box and seeing the cat is what makes the cat definitely alive or definitely dead in reality. It's as if the universe waits for a witness before committing to an outcome. This idea that consciousness might collapse the multitude of quantum possibilities into one concrete fact is intriguing, but it raises its own puzzles and philosophical dilemmas. Others propose that maybe it isn't consciousness specifically, but any interaction with the environment, however small, that does the trick. Perhaps the instant a stray air molecule, or a bit of light, or any external influence interacts with the cat-in-the-box system, the spell is broken. The superposition of life and death collapses into one reality or the other, long before a person ever opens the lid. In this view, it's practically impossible to keep quantum effects alive in something as large as a cat, because the tiniest interaction with the outside world would measure the system and force a result. Thus, the cat wouldn't really be both alive and dead in reality, only in our calculations. Nature herself would quietly resolve the ambiguity out of sight through interactions we didn't notice. And so, Schrödinger's cat places us face to face with the quantum enigma. It forces us to ask, where is the dividing line between the shadowy world of quantum possibilities and the solid world of everyday experience? Is it the presence of an observer? Is it just a matter of scale or complexity? No one could say for certain, and debates raged in physics conferences and university hallways about how to interpret this situation. For decades, Schrödinger's imaginary cat prowled the thoughts of scientists and philosophers, refusing to be neatly explained away. The thought experiment did its job well. It got people talking, questioning, and seeking new insights into quantum theory's foundations. Schrödinger's whimsical yet disturbing scenario leapt out of the physics community and captured the public imagination too. The very phrase, Schrödinger's cat, entered popular culture as a synonym for things that are indeterminate or in limbo. It has been referenced in countless books and films, often as a metaphor for the uncertainty of outcomes. It's ironic in a way. What began as a critique of the theory's strangeness became the most famous illustration of that strangeness. Schrödinger's made-up cat helped generations of science enthusiasts appreciate just how mysterious the quantum world really is. To probe whether quantum weirdness fades into the familiar world, scientists have been performing ingenious experiments of their own. Over the years, they've managed to coax larger and larger systems into behaving in a quantum manner. For example, researchers have sent large molecules, composed of dozens or even hundreds of atoms, through double slits and observed them create interference patterns, suggesting that even these complex particles can act like waves exploring multiple paths at once. In other studies, tiny mechanical resonators, small structures visible to the naked eye, have been cooled and tuned until they display a kind of quantum behavior. They can vibrate and not vibrate simultaneously, a miniature echo of Schrödinger's cat scenario, where a small object is in a superposition of two opposite states. Of course, no one is anywhere close to putting a living creature into a quantum limbo, and likely no one ever will. But these experiments are pushing steadily at the boundary between the quantum and the classical. With each advance, physicists learn a bit more about how, or if, the fuzzy realm of possibilities transitions into the definite world we experience. It seems increasingly that the line between the two may not be a sharp cut-off at all, but a gradual, subtle veil. We are only beginning to understand how quantum potential becomes everyday reality, and Schrödinger's mischievous cat remains a guiding metaphor in that quest. As the years went by, various interpretations of quantum mechanics were proposed to resolve the riddle of Schrödinger's cat and the measurement problem. One of them suggested that maybe our whole approach was wrong. that nature wasn't choosing a single outcome at random at all? What if, when faced with quantum uncertainty, the universe doesn't pick one outcome, but somehow realizes every outcome? Perhaps every time a quantum event can go multiple ways, reality splits, and each possible outcome happens, but in its own separate world. It sounds like science fiction, but this radical idea was put forward as a serious scientific interpretation of quantum mechanics. In the case of Schrödinger's cat, such an idea would mean there is no strange half-alive, half-dead cat waiting on our observation. Instead, when the box is closed and time passes, the universe quietly branches into different versions. In one branch of reality, the atom decays, the poison is released, and that branch contains a world where the box holds a lifeless cat. In another branch, the atom does not decay, the poison stays sealed, and in that world, the cat is alive and well, perhaps meowing indignantly at being trapped in the dark. This bold way of thinking proposed that both realities occur, each as real as the other, but we experience only one, because we have become part of one branch. You open the box in one universe and find a live cat. In another equally real universe, another you opens the box to a tragic sight. According to this interpretation, the wave of quantum possibilities never collapses at all. It just splits into multiple, coexisting realities. The cat is both alive and dead, yes, but not in the same single world. Each outcome has its own separate world in which it is fully true. This idea would come to be known as the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. It offers a resolution to Schrödinger's nightmare by essentially saying, everything that can happen does happen, but each happening exists in its own parallel universe. It was a breathtaking answer to the challenge, one that shifts the strangeness of quantum mechanics onto a grander stage. Instead of asking how a cat can be alive and dead in one world, it says the cat is alive in one world and dead in another. The bizarre superposition is replaced by an unimaginably large collection of worlds, each with a cat that is definitively alive or definitively dead. This audacious interpretation was introduced by a young American physicist named Hugh Everett III in 1957, when he was a graduate student at Princeton. At first, he called it the relative state formulation of quantum mechanics, emphasizing that after a measurement, the observer and the observed system are both left in a new, correlated state relative to each other. But as the concept evolved, and others discussed it, it became popularly known as the many worlds theory. The name captures its essence, an ever-multiplying number of parallel worlds, each as concrete and real as our own, each following a different outcome of events. It's hard to overstate how radical this idea was for its time. The scientific establishment in the 1950s, still coming to terms with the oddities of quantum mechanics, was not ready to embrace a literal multiverse of parallel existences. When Everett travelled to Copenhagen to discuss his theory with Niels Bohr, the very same Bohr who sparred with Einstein over quantum theory, the reception was, at best, frosty. Bohr and his colleagues in the Copenhagen interpretation believed that quantum mechanics required a special process of collapse that happened during measurement, and they found Everett's proposal of no collapse, just universes splitting, to be too extravagant, and perhaps even metaphysical. Everett's ideas were largely set aside, and for a while it seemed they might fade into obscurity. Indeed, after publishing his theory, Hugh Everett found that few in the physics community were willing to take it seriously. He had hoped his work would spark lively discussion, but it was mostly met with silence or polite dismissal. Feeling discouraged, Everett left academia not long after finishing his PhD. He moved into defense research and applied mathematics, stepping away from the forefront of theoretical physics. He would not live to see the resurgence of interest in his idea. By the time other scientists revisited and championed the many worlds interpretation in the 1970s and beyond, Everett had quietly passed away. One can only wonder if, somewhere in one of those countless parallel universes, there is a version of Hugh Everett who received immediate recognition for his bold idea and witnessed it becoming a cornerstone of how we understand quantum reality. Yet powerful ideas often find a way to persist. Over the ensuing decades, a handful of physicists kept Everett's flame alive. Notably, in the 1970s, physicist Bryce DeWitt picked up Everett's work and gave it the memorable name Many Worlds, which captured imaginations. Slowly, what started as a fringe idea began to gain a measure of respectability. It helped that the many worlds interpretation, for all its mind-bending implications, is actually quite elegant from a theoretical standpoint. It doesn't require any new physics beyond the standard quantum equations. It only requires us to take those equations at face value. According to many worlds, we don't need a special mechanism to collapse the wave function or a mysterious role for consciousness. The mathematics of quantum mechanics already describes a multitude of outcomes. So perhaps all of those outcomes come to pass, each in a separate branch of reality. Imagine the implications if this theory is true. Every toss of a coin, every roll of a die, every seemingly random event does not produce a single outcome to the exclusion of all others. Instead, all possible outcomes occur, each in its own branch of the universe. If you flip a coin and it comes up heads in this world, there is another world in which you see it land tails. In one universe, a decision you make turns out one way. In another universe, you made a different choice, and the consequences unfold differently. Think of monumental events in history. There could be a world where a certain war never happened, sparing millions and leading society down a path of peace and innovation unimaginable to us. There might be a world where a scientific discovery that we made in our timeline was delayed or never made at all, setting technology on a completely different course. There might even be a branch where the asteroid that drove the dinosaurs to extinction missed the Earth entirely, an Earth where those giant reptiles still roam, and mammals, humans included, never rose to dominance as they did here. The possibilities fan out endlessly, limited only by the laws of nature themselves. A natural question arises. If these parallel worlds are out there, why can't we see or sense them in any way? The answer lies in the nature of the branching itself. Once two branches split apart, they effectively become separate realities that do not interact. It's as if they are parallel lines on a plane. They extend forever, side by side, but never cross. The laws of physics, as we currently understand them, prevent us from hopping between branches or even detecting the presence of these other universes. Each branch is self-contained, with its own copy of every particle, every field, every person. The other worlds might as well be invisible and intangible to us, even though they coexist alongside our own. This isolation is actually what makes the many worlds interpretation internally consistent with our experience of only one reality. In Everett's formulation, when a quantum event causes the universe to branch, each version of us becomes entangled with one of those outcomes. There is a version of you for each branch, but each version can only perceive and experience the world of their own branch. To that version of you, it feels as if the coins simply happened to land heads, or the cat simply turned out alive, or you simply chose one path and not the other. The existence of the other, equally real outcomes is hidden, because the you on each branch is unaware of all the other yous living out the other possibilities. Over time, scientists developed the concept of decoherence to help explain why branches stay separate. Decoherence is a technical term, but essentially it means that when quantum possibilities interact with something big, like the environment of a room, a measuring device, or even air molecules, the different outcomes lose their ability to interfere with one another. Each possible result becomes tied to a different state of the environment, and these states quickly become effectively independent. In many worlds' language, decoherence is what seals off the branches from each other. It's the process that takes a quantum superposition and, through interactions with the environment, turns it into a set of distinct, non-communicating outcomes. That's why, once the box is opened and you see a live cat, you don't also see some weird ghost of a dead cat overlaying reality. The branch with the dead cat has decohered into its own world, utterly separate from yours. Though the many worlds interpretation elegantly sidesteps the measurement problem, it does so at the cost of an extravagance of realities. Some scientists argue that it's too high a price to pay. Invoking countless unobservable universes, they say, is an excessive leap, perhaps even unscientific, since by definition we cannot directly confirm these other worlds. From their perspective, many worlds starts to feel more like philosophy than testable physics. They also point out that multiplying realities so freely seems to violate a principle known as Occam's razor, which favors simpler explanations with fewer assumptions. If we have no evidence of these parallel universes and no way to interact with them, is it truly necessary or meaningful to claim they exist? Supporters of many worlds counter that they aren't inventing any new physics at all. They are simply taking the mathematics of quantum mechanics to its logical conclusion. The theory requires no special extra equations or mysterious mechanisms. It only requires accepting that those equations might describe multiple outcomes happening in parallel. In their view, dismissing an idea just because it sounds extravagant could be a mistake. After all, reality has surprised us before. If the math suggests a multiverse, maybe the universe really is that vast and varied. They also argue that many worlds, while strange, is a clean interpretation. It doesn't add arbitrary rules about when wave functions collapse or why observers are special. It says, let everything happen, and it's all real, just not all in the same world. To these physicists, the simplicity and sweep of this explanation are compelling, even if it means embracing a cosmos far stranger than we can directly observe. By now, the many worlds theory is one of the most talked about interpretations of quantum mechanics. It hasn't been proven true. We have no direct evidence of those other branches, and some scientists doubt we ever could detect them. But it has gained a foothold in mainstream physics discussions. Many physicists take it seriously, or at least find it worth pondering, especially as experiment after experiment continues to confirm the odd predictions of quantum theory. For them, many worlds takes those odd predictions in stride and says, all outcomes happen. And notably, it doesn't actually contradict any experiment we can perform. It fits all the same data that the conventional interpretation fits, just with a very different story behind that data. Indeed, over the decades, a number of respected physicists have grown sympathetic to Everett's once outrageous idea. In some polls taken at conferences or among experts, a significant minority, and sometimes even a majority, of physicists say they consider the many worlds interpretation to be plausible, or at least a valid contender, among quantum theories. What began as a maverick's proposal is now a legitimate topic of research and debate. Popular science books and documentaries routinely explore the concept of the multiverse, bringing Everett's vision to wider audiences. To be sure, not everyone is convinced. Many researchers still favor other interpretations that don't involve spawning entire universes for each measurement. The conversation is far from settled, but the fact that many worlds is now part of the mainstream discourse highlights just how far our thinking has evolved since the days when Schrödinger's half-serious cat first tiptoed into view. So, what does this story mean for our understanding of time and reality? If every moment can branch into many, then time itself may not be a single river flowing from past to future. Instead, it might be more like the delta of a great river, splitting into a fan of distributaries that wander off in different directions. Each branch of the river is a timeline where events unfolded one particular way. In the many worlds picture, the future isn't fixed. At any given moment, the future is an ever-expanding range of possibilities. We often think of the future as something singular that is yet to happen. But here we must imagine multiple futures, all of which will happen, each in its own world. In one future, perhaps you become a scientist. In another, you pursue a completely different life. In one, a certain invention changes society. In another, that invention never came to be. The number of possible timelines grows exponentially with each passing moment, branching and branching without end. Time has often been compared to a river, flowing in one direction. But if the many worlds idea holds true, that river is more like a gigantic tree with myriad branches. Each time something could happen in more than one way, the branch splits and the tree of time grows a new limb. We usually experience time as a single stream. We move along one branch and follow it into the future. Yet, in the grander view, every moment of choice or chance sends reality down multiple paths, each path a new branch with its own version of events. Think of each moment as a fork in a trail. When a fork comes, you might go left or right. Either way, you experience only the path you take. But what if every time you reach a fork, the trail itself splits, and both paths continue in different woods? In one wood, you walked left. In another you walked right. At the next fork, those paths split again, and again, and again, creating a vast forest of trails. This is one way to envision branching time. An ever-widening network of roads not taken, and roads that were taken, each by a different version of reality. It's not only personal decisions that create these branches. Nature itself is constantly branching at every level. Every time a radioactive atom decays at one moment and not another. Every time a distant star emits a photon in one direction versus a different direction, new branches sprout. Most of these tiny differences remain microscopic and unnoticeable. But some will grow into major macroscopic differences, given enough time. Perhaps a small change in the weather on a particular day alters the outcome of an important historical event. Or imagine a world where a major war in our history never occurred at all, sending civilization down a peaceful path that's utterly foreign to our timeline. Over decades and centuries, that one divergence could lead to a reality unrecognizable to us. Scientists sometimes call this the butterfly effect. The idea that even a tiny change can have big consequences down the line. Just as the flap of a butterfly's wings might eventually influence the course of a hurricane weeks later, a seemingly trivial divergence early in history can snowball into an enormously different world in the long run. Visualize the entire history of our universe as the trunk of a great cosmic tree. At the very beginning of time, say at the Big Bang, everything was unified as one. But as time went on, and the first quantum events unfolded, that single history began sprouting branches. Every significant event, every random roll of cosmic dice, sent reality down multiple paths. The trunk gave way to thick limbs, which in turn branched into finer and finer twigs. Our own timeline is just one branch on this immense tree of time, a robust branch with countless sub-branches of its own. If we trace our branch back, we'd find it joined with other branches at various points in the past, whenever their histories coincided with ours. If we follow it forward, we'd see it splitting again and again into the future. In this view, the idea of a singular destiny comes into question. The future isn't a single line waiting for us. It's a spreading fan of possibilities. We often talk about destiny, or fate, as if certain events are meant to happen, but in a branching multiverse, every outcome that can happen will happen in some branch. That means there is no one inevitable future, only a range of potential futures that will all occur, each in its own universe. There is a branch where the thing you fear never comes to pass, and another where it happens, and another where something entirely different surprises everyone. One might wonder, if time branches like this, could some branches ever touch or rejoin? Could two parallel timelines ever converge back into one? As far as we can tell, once a branch splits off, it carves its own path forward, never to merge with its siblings. In our tree analogy, branches might grow alongside each other, but they don't fuse back together. Each timeline proceeds independently, carrying its unique history onward. In some science fiction tales, characters slip between parallel timelines or find ways to weave alternate histories together. But in physical reality, at least given our current understanding, each branch remains sealed off by the very events that made it diverge. Interestingly, some scientists and philosophers have speculated that if backward time travel were possible, it might work within this branching framework. Instead of changing your own past and creating the classic grandfather paradox where you negate your own existence, a time traveler might emerge into a different branch of history. For example, if you went back in time and prevented a particular event, you would not erase your original timeline. Rather, you'd create or step into a new branch where that event did not occur. In that scenario, the original branch, where the event did happen, would continue to exist separately, and the traveller would now be living in the alternate branch they created. This idea neatly sidesteps the paradoxes of time travel. Any change you make lives on in a separate branch, so no contradiction arises in the world you came from. It remains a speculative notion. Time travel itself is purely hypothetical at this point. But it's fascinating how the concept of branching time provides possible resolutions to puzzles that once seemed unsolvable. This branching view of time challenges how we think about cause and effect. In our normal experience, one cause leads to one effect in a single chain of events. But in a branching universe, a single cause can lead to many different effects, each in a separate timeline. It's as if the dominoes of causality don't fall in one line, but rather they scatter in various directions. Every outcome that could stem from a cause does occur, but each in its own universe. That's a profound shift from the usual narrative of history we tell ourselves. It also reshapes how we think about possibility in our own lives. Usually, when we choose one path, we console ourselves or regretfully wonder about the path not taken, but ultimately we know that only one of those paths becomes our reality. In a multiverse, however, the path not taken is taken, just not by the you that exists here, listening to this. It's taken by another you in another universe. Those what-if scenarios. What if you had moved to a different city? What if you had pursued a different career? What if you had said yes instead of no? Are not mere fantasies. In the many worlds interpretation, they are real events, playing out in parallel branches of time. Reflecting on the branches of time can give a new perspective on the idea of fate or destiny. If all outcomes happen, then perhaps nothing is strictly fated in an absolute sense. There is no single track that must be followed. Instead, destiny becomes a concept that's relative to each individual branch. On our branch, we have our destiny, the story that unfolds here. On another branch, the destiny of that world might be entirely different. In a multiverse, fate isn't a one-line script, but an infinite library of scripts, each one realized in a different universe. Standing here on our particular branch, looking out at the hypothetical others, one can't help but feel both wonder and humility. Our world, everything we know, every experience we cherish or lament, makes up just one thread in a vast tapestry. The other threads remain forever out of reach, but the mere thought of them can influence how we see ourselves. It can inspire us to recognize how precious and unique our own timeline is, even as it is just one of countless possibilities. Yes, in some other universe, another version of you might have made different choices, but only here are you living this life, building this set of memories and relationships. That realization can instill a kind of awe, and perhaps a gentle resolve to make the most of the path we're on. This brings us to a deeply personal side of the multiverse idea. So far, we've spoken about events and timelines in general, but what about the people living in those alternate worlds? What about us? If every choice we make leads to different outcomes on different branches, then on some of those branches live alternate versions of ourselves. It's time to wonder, who are these parallel selves? And what lives are they leading in worlds where things happen differently? Our journey now turns to those other selves, those reflections of us scattered across the multiverse, as we explore the notion of parallel lives. Imagine standing before a mirror, but instead of a single reflection, you see countless reflections of yourself stretching into the distance. Each reflection moves a bit differently, wears different clothes, or has a different expression. In a sense, the multiverse suggests something similar. Innumerable versions of you, each living a life that branched off from yours at some point in the past. Some of these versions might be nearly identical to you, living in a world almost indistinguishable from this one. Others might be drastically different, inhabiting worlds that evolved in far-flung ways. It's a dizzying concept, to think that somewhere out there, another you is walking a path you never took, or faced circumstances you never experienced. Consider the small choices that shape the course of a day. Perhaps this morning you decided to take a different route to work, or you chose to reach out to an old friend, or you skipped your usual coffee. In another universe, another you made a different choice, took the familiar route, didn't make that call, did grab a coffee. These might seem like trivial differences, and indeed many parallel universes created by minor choices would be virtually indistinguishable from our own. But follow those tiny divergences through time, and they can compound into significant differences. The you who took the alternate route to work might have avoided an accident that the other you encountered. The you who called the old friend might have rekindled an important relationship in that world, whereas here, that friendship slowly faded. Over years and decades, the ripple effects of even little choices can make one life story diverge greatly from another. Now consider the larger forks in the road of life. The school you attended, the career you pursued, the relationships you nurtured or let go. For every major decision, there could be a version of you that made the opposite choice. To you, those unlived paths exist only as lingering what-ifs. Perhaps you occasionally wonder how life might have unfolded had you decided differently. But to another you, on another branch, those what-ifs are simply reality. That other you went to the other school, took the other job, moved to that faraway city, married someone else, or never married at all. All the choices you ponder now and then, the roads not taken, are the very roads those other selves are travelling with all the immediacy and concreteness of everyday life. For instance, imagine you always had a passion for music, but chose a more practical career in this life. In another universe, there might be a version of you who took the leap, who attended that music academy, spent years honing their craft, and now performs on stage under warm, glowing lights. That other, you might not have the same family or job that you have here. Their life's joys and struggles revolve around concerts, creativity, and the pursuit of art. Meanwhile, you in this world might sometimes daydream, wondering what if you had followed that artistic path. Perhaps on a quiet evening, you picture yourself in an alternate life, living in a different city, playing music to an appreciative crowd. And perhaps, in that other universe, the musical version of you occasionally fantasizes about a more ordinary life, the one you lead here with a stable career and a family. In that gentle mirroring, each version of you contemplates the path the other took. It's a reminder that the choices which define our lives could have led to very different stories. And in the multiverse, all those stories are being told. Each narrative plays out fully, with its own triumphs and tribulations, loves and losses. Now consider even more dramatic forks. Think about a pivotal person who came into your life, a friend, a lover, a mentor. What if, in another branch of reality, you never met that person? Perhaps in that world you took a job offer in a different city, and your paths never crossed. The influence they would have had on you, the memories you would have shared, simply never happened in that timeline. Instead, maybe another person filled that role, or maybe that aspect of your life unfolded quite differently. Meanwhile, in yet another branch, you might have met someone who, in this world, remained a stranger, and that meeting changed everything for you there. Meeting one of these alternate selves, if such a thing were cosmically possible, would be a surreal experience. This other person would be you, and yet not you, shaped by a different history. You might share a childhood up to a certain point, and then your stories diverged. Would you recognize yourself in them? Perhaps you'd see a familiar spark in their eyes, or a characteristic gesture or laugh. But much about them might seem foreign, shaped as it was by experiences you never had. The divergence of your lives would likely make your personalities distinct in many ways. Different tastes, different skills, different perspectives, born from the different challenges and opportunities each of you encountered. The encounter would raise deep questions. Are these alternate selves truly you? Or are they completely separate individuals who merely started from the same blueprint? In a sense, they are both. They are you, in that they spring from the same origin, another branch of the same soul or identity, if you will. Yet, as time went on, they became not you, developing into their own person with their own identity. Each one has memories and experiences only they know, a life only they have lived. Perhaps the right way to think of it is that all of these parallel selves are like siblings, very closely related, sharing a common origin, yet each unique. Throughout history, and across many cultures, people have imagined the existence of doppelgangers, doubles, or shadow selves. In folklore, meeting your own double was sometimes seen as an omen or a supernatural event. In modern science fiction and fantasy, countless stories revolve around parallel universes and alternate versions of characters. Think of characters stepping through a mirror or a portal into a world where they encounter another self who made different choices, or where the world around them took a different turn. We seem to be drawn to these tales of parallel lives. They speak to a deep curiosity about how things could have been. Ancient myths across cultures have imagined hidden realms and mirror worlds, realities running alongside our own. And in recent times, novels, movies, and TV shows abound with plots about alternate histories and parallel Earths. We find something intriguing and compelling in the idea that just out of reach, there might be another version of our world where everything is familiar yet different. Such stories allow us to explore the endless what-ifs of human life in a safe, imaginative way. They let us peer, for a moment, into paths not taken and consider how small changes could lead to very different destinies. Of course, in reality as we know it, these other selves and other worlds remain purely theoretical. We cannot reach through the mirror to meet them. They are, for now, forever inaccessible, sealed off in their own branches of the multiverse. But contemplating them can be a thoughtful exercise. It reminds us that our way of life is not the only way, that many outcomes which never came to be here could have been very real under slightly altered circumstances. This awareness can foster a sense of humility and empathy. We realize how much of what we are is a product of circumstances beyond our control. Tiny accidents of fate, chance meetings, lucky breaks, or misfortunes narrowly avoided. Sometimes, when life takes a turn and we say, it could have been otherwise, the multiverse suggests that it truly is otherwise in another realm. There's a certain solace in that idea, the notion that somewhere, in some branch of reality, things went differently, maybe better, for the people we love, or for ourselves. Perhaps in one universe, a disease was cured in time, and a loved one survived and thrived. Perhaps in another, a missed opportunity was seized, and a dream was fulfilled. Thinking of those happier branches can be comforting, like imagining an alternate ending to a sad story. There is also a melancholy side, knowing that in another world, a version of us might be living through something wonderful that we missed, or conversely, that a tragedy we suffered here might be absent elsewhere. The multiverse can be a repository of all the happiness and heartbreak that could have been. But it's important to remember that from the perspective of each of those selves, their life, the one they know, is as concrete and present as ours is to us. They too likely have their own mix of joys and sorrows, as unaware of our existence as we are of theirs. The existence of parallel lives touches on the question of uniqueness. We like to think of ourselves, our loved ones, our experiences as unique in the universe. It's part of what gives life meaning, the idea that each person's journey is singular. If there are countless versions of you out there, living variations of your life, does that diminish your uniqueness? One way to look at it is that each version of you is still unique, because no two versions share the exact same story or the exact same mind. Like twins separated at birth and raised in different environments, they start from the same point, but diverge and become fully individual. Another perspective is to consider that you might be bigger than any single timeline. Perhaps one could imagine, philosophically, that your true self is like a pattern that spans across many universes, a kind of higher dimensional existence that includes all your parallel incarnations. That's a speculative and metaphysical idea, to be sure. Science doesn't really deal with concepts like a soul that traverses multiple worlds. Those ideas belong to philosophy or spiritual thought. But it's an intriguing notion. If all these alternate selves exist, what connects them besides our imagination? It raises questions about identity that we don't yet know how to frame, let alone answer. On a practical level, thinking about alternate versions of people can nurture empathy. When we see someone struggling or succeeding, we are reminded that, with a small change in circumstances, their fate could have been ours, and ours could have been theirs. In one universe, someone very like you might have faced hardships you were spared. In another, they enjoy advantages you never had. It underscores the role of chance in our lives. This realization can make us more compassionate, knowing that many aspects of life are a roll of the cosmic dice. It could have been us in different shoes, and in some world, it indeed is. All these reflections can lead to another question. If every choice and every outcome happens somewhere, does that make our choices here any less meaningful? If another version of me will choose differently in another world, one might wonder whether it truly matters what I do in this world. It's a thought that can be either unsettling or strangely liberating. But perhaps meaning isn't diminished at all. Each version of us experiences their own life fully, with no knowledge of the others. To the person you are right now, the choices you make have genuine weight, because they shape the only life you will know in this universe. The existence of other branches doesn't change the fact that in this reality, your decisions determine the path you walk and affect the people around you. In that sense, every decision we make is still tremendously significant. It defines the story of this world. Yes, another you in a parallel world might make a different choice, but that doesn't alter what happens here and now. To this version of you, and those sharing this branch of reality with you, we remain responsible for and connected to the outcomes in our own timeline. In a way, knowing that alternate versions of us are out there can even inspire us to make the most of this life. Not because it's the only life we have in the entirety of existence, but because it's uniquely ours. Out of an ocean of possibilities, this is the path we're experiencing. No one else in this universe can live it for us. It's like being dealt a particular hand of cards in a game. Maybe in another game someone identical to you was dealt a better hand, or a worse hand. But in the game you're playing right now, it's up to you to play your cards as best as you can. There is meaning in that, a kind of singular importance to your journey, despite or even because of the multitude of journeys that exist alongside it. Sometimes, late at night, one might gaze up at the stars and wonder if somewhere out there, on another branch of reality, another self is gazing at the same stars, thinking similar thoughts. It's a poetic image, like two mirrors facing each other, reflecting endless variations. We'll likely never know for sure if that other self exists, but imagining them can make the universe feel both bigger and smaller. Bigger, because reality seems to extend far beyond what we can see. Smaller, because it feels as if our solitary thoughts might not be so solitary after all. As we near the end of this exploration of parallel lives, it's important to remember that the multiverse, for now, remains a theory, a tantalizing one, backed by some interpretations of quantum mechanics, but still unconfirmed. No experiment has directly revealed another universe, nor have we communicated with alternate selves. It's possible we never will. These ideas push up against the limits of what science can say and spill into the realm of the philosophical. And yet, thinking about them expands our imagination and challenges our conception of reality. Our journey through these otherworldly theories does not end here. The notion of multiple universes raises questions we haven't yet touched upon. Are there other kinds of parallel worlds beyond those created by quantum branching? Could there be entirely separate universes, born from different initial conditions, or perhaps higher dimensions where other realities reside? And might there be a way, even a subtle hint, to detect or infer the existence of these other universes? These mysteries beckon us onward. For now, we quietly marvel at the vastness of possibility. We stand at the threshold of the unknown, peering out at what one might poetically call mirrors of infinity, countless reflections of worlds and lives, including our own, extending beyond our sight. Our exploration continues as we venture further into the realms beyond our own, searching for understanding in the endless tapestry of reality. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world around us grows silent, a gentle wonder stirs in our minds. We gaze up at the faint glow of stars or the soft shadows dancing on our walls, and we begin to question the nature of everything we perceive. Is the reality we experience during the day as solid and true as it seems? Or could it be something more elusive, like a dream we have yet to awaken from? In these tranquil moments, imagination can roam free, tiptoeing along the boundaries between what is real and what might be illusion. As our thoughts drift, we entertain an extraordinary idea that perhaps our world, with all its vivid colours and familiar comforts, might be something akin to a grand simulation. It's a notion both unsettling and wondrous. Picture for a moment that everything around us, the trees swaying gently in the nighttime breeze, the distant stars in their silent vigil, even our own bodies and thoughts, could be part of an intricate design, like characters moving inside a vast cosmic computer program. This is the essence of the simulation hypothesis, an invitation to imagine that life as we know it is woven into a tapestry of code and consciousness, crafted by an intelligence beyond our current understanding. This concept, strange as it may sound, carries a surprisingly gentle familiarity. After all, across cultures and ages, people have wondered if the world is more illusion than reality. Ancient philosophers and sages spoke of life as a kind of dream or a play of shadows. In Hindu philosophy, the term Maya describes the world as a grand illusion, a veil that makes the transient seem eternal and the created feel independent. Similarly, Plato's allegory of the cave imagined people seeing only flickering shadows on a wall, mistaking those shadows for the whole of reality. Now, with modern minds and new metaphors, we revisit this timeless question through the lens of technology. Might our reality be a carefully constructed virtual stage? If indeed we were living inside such a simulation, what would that mean for us? Perhaps it would be like finding out that we are characters in an elaborate story, or players in a beautifully rendered game, where every blade of grass and every breeze has been programmed with care. Some find this idea unnerving, the thought that our choices might be pre-written, or that our personal struggles and triumphs are but lines of code executing their functions. Yet there is also a curious comfort in it, the suggestion that there is an author or creator behind the scenes, an intelligence that set all this in motion. If reality is indeed designed, then maybe nothing is truly random. Perhaps every sunrise, every friendship, every serendipitous encounter has a purpose within a grand, hidden plan. Think of the world we know as a kind of simulated garden, tended by unseen hands. In this garden, the physical laws are like the rules of a game, consistent and fair, allowing life to flourish and evolve. The stars move in their courses, and the seasons turn, all following the program's elegant code. We live day to day, mostly unaware of any possible boundaries beyond our visible horizon. But once in a while, when we pause and let our minds grow quiet, we might sense there is more beyond the surface of things, as if the reality we know is a thin film, and beyond it lies an ocean of deeper truth. Perhaps it's no surprise that the idea of discovering an illusory world has long captured our imagination. We find tales of wanderers and heroes who come to learn that the reality they knew was but a facade, and who then set out to glimpse whatever lies beyond the curtain of their world. Such stories fascinate us, echoing a deep-seated curiosity, the sense that hidden behind the ordinary lives we lead, there might be something vastly different and wondrous awaiting discovery. As we listen to these tales or watch their dramas unfold, we can't help but wonder, what if that were us? What if one quiet day, the curtain were pulled back, and we caught a glimpse of what lies outside our own world's stage? These musings can be thrilling in the bright light of day, but here, in the stillness of night, we entertain them gently, letting them kindle a soft awe rather than excitement. Scientists and philosophers have explored the simulation idea in their own careful ways. Some suggest that in a future far ahead, a civilization might become advanced enough to recreate entire worlds on powerful computers, populated with digital people who believe they are alive in a physical universe. If that is possible, they ask, who is to say it hasn't already happened? We ourselves might be those simulated beings, living lives that to us feel completely real, unaware of any programmers or architects behind the cosmic curtain. Interestingly, this notion has quietly drifted from the realm of science fiction into serious discussions among some researchers. This hypothesis has even made its way into mainstream conversations, with some modern thinkers openly wondering if we might be digital creations. It's a thought experiment that can shift how we see the world. What if everything we touch and see is information at its core, a kind of code? It's a hypothesis that turns reality on its head, yet it remains a calm and speculative one. No alarms sound in our daily life to reveal any seams in the fabric of existence. The simulation, if it exists, hums steadily in the background, as subtle and pervasive as a dream we cannot step outside of. From our perspective, inside the simulation, if that is indeed where we are, everything follows consistent patterns. Droplets of rain fall according to gravity's pull. Our hearts beat in rhythm, and we breathe without thinking, as if our bodies know the code by heart. When we look closely at matter, we find molecules and atoms, and within those, tiny particles dancing to mathematical laws. It's almost as if reality is built on an invisible latticework of logic, humming along perfectly. Some have wondered if this underlying order is akin to the binary zeros and ones of a computer's code, a subtle hint that physical existence might hide a digital essence at its core. They search for clues, like physicists studying whether space and time come in discrete pixels too small for us to notice, or if unpredictable quantum behavior might be the result of some deeper computational process ticking away beneath everything. So far, these musings remain in the realm of imagination and theory. We have no definitive proof that our world is a simulation. Some even point to the uncanny balance of conditions in our universe, the way the laws of physics seem precisely tuned for life to exist, and wonder if this is no coincidence, but rather a clue of careful design, consistent with the simulation idea. And yet, simply considering it expands our perspective. It reminds us that much of what we take for granted could be understood in entirely new ways. Late at night, when the streets are empty and the sky is dark, one might look around and imagine the subtle glow of a monitor beyond the stars, or the faint sound of cosmic circuitry, not in a literal sense, but as a poetic reflection. It is as if the universe itself were softly whispering secrets, and we are trying to listen, eyes closed, heart open, to what it might be saying about our true nature. Even if our reality is a form of simulation, that does not diminish its beauty. A painted landscape is no less beautiful for being a creation of an artist's hand, and a dream can feel profoundly meaningful even after we wake. In the same way, the love we feel, the laughter we share, and the wonders we behold every day remain genuine to us, the experiences. The warmth of sunlight on our skin, or the comfort of a friend's voice. These joys would not be made hollow simply because they arise from a sophisticated design. If anything, one might feel an even deeper appreciation, knowing that these moments were thoughtfully placed in the tapestry of our lives, like gifts from whoever or whatever crafted this reality. On the other hand, the simulation idea can also make us feel small in a certain way, like characters in a novel, wondering about the author. It might lead us to ask, why was this world constructed? And why were we put here to experience it? Are we part of some grand experiment, a story being told, or a game being played? These questions drift through our minds like clouds across a twilight sky, slowly, without urgency, simply reflecting the innate human desire to find meaning. We may never know the answers, but asking them can be a gentle exercise in expanding our imagination and humility. It places us in the cosmic order, not as masters of the universe, but as curious participants in something vast and mysterious. Imagine for a moment that beyond the bounds of our perceived universe, there are other beings or intelligences watching us, the way one watches the shimmering screen of a computer simulation. Perhaps they smile at our small triumphs and learning moments, much as a parent might smile at a child's discovery. This thought need not be frightening. It can feel like we have silent companions, observers who care about the unfolding narrative of our world. In a way, it's almost a modern scientific twist on the ancient idea of guardian angels or guiding spirits. Instead of divine beings, they could be advanced programmers or our own future selves, nurturing the growth of the characters in their world. And maybe, just maybe, we are not so different from them. Perhaps they too are part of a simulation in an even higher reality. Worlds nested within worlds, like endless reflections in a hall of mirrors. When the idea of the simulation becomes a bit overwhelming, we can gently step back and return to what is directly in front of us: our breath, the softness of our blankets, the quiet of our room. Real or simulated, this is the reality we know and feel. We ground ourselves in the simple truth that experience is experience, and it shapes us. If life is a simulation, then it is a remarkably rich one, full of lessons and emotions and connections that matter deeply to us. The hypothesis does not truly change how the grass grows or how our hearts love. Those remain as real as can be to the ones living through them. Still, in contemplating the simulation, we have opened a door in our mind, a door to a corridor of infinite possibilities. We begin to sense that reality might not be a single, flat tapestry, but a multi-layered mystery. One layer could be the digital or dreamlike stage we inhabit, and beyond it, who knows what lies. The mere act of questioning our reality has the gentle effect of loosening our rigid assumptions. We become more open to unlikely ideas, to unseen realms, to the possibility that what we see is just one of many levels of existence. With that openness blossoming, we find ourselves naturally drifting toward other notions of hidden realms. Our journey doesn't stop at the simulation hypothesis. In fact, it gently guides us onward, encouraging us to imagine even more expansive ideas. For if this world might be a crafted illusion or a programmed space, what else might lie beyond our normal perception? Let us continue our exploration, floating onward to ponder the idea of dimensions and planes that exist quietly alongside the world we know, unseen, but perhaps ever present, as we step further into the unknown with a calm and curious heart. Picture the space we move through every day. We know it has height, width, and depth. We can walk forward and back, side to side, and we can jump up or come back down. These 3 dimensions make up the world we experience, along with the gentle flow of time that carries us along. But now, let's quietly consider, could there be more dimensions beyond these? Ones our senses simply aren't tuned to perceive. To imagine this, let's use a simple tale. Think of a little being living on a flat surface, like a ladybug walking on a vast sheet of paper. To the ladybug, the paper is its entire universe. It can roam left and right, forward and backward, but it has no awareness of up or down. If you were to gently lift that paper or curl it, the ladybug might notice something strange, perhaps objects seeming to appear or vanish as the paper bends. But it wouldn't truly understand that a whole new direction exists just above or below its flat world. In the same way, we humans might be like that little creature, blissfully moving around in 3 dimensions, while additional dimensions could be there all around us, unseen and untouched, simply because our bodies and minds are confined to our familiar 3. Scientists who study the cosmos have indeed proposed that hidden dimensions might be real. Some modern theories suggest that there may be extra dimensions of space, perhaps very tiny ones curled up on themselves, or perhaps large ones that our instruments have yet to detect. We don't experience these dimensions directly, much like the ladybug doesn't feel the 3rd dimension, but their presence could subtly influence our universe. In fact, some advanced theories in physics, like string theory, propose that space has as many as 10 or 11 dimensions. In such models, our own universe might be a 3-dimensional brain floating in a higher dimensional expanse, with other such brains, essentially other universes, potentially quite close to ours, in that unseen realm. For instance, gravity is a force we know well in our everyday life. Some scientists have speculated that gravity might be leaking into or out of extra dimensions, which could explain why it appears weaker than other fundamental forces. Though these ideas are complex, we can think of it in a simple way. Our reality might have a kind of depth or breadth that we cannot see, an extension into directions we cannot point, but which might be just as real as length or height. Parallel to the scientific visions of hidden dimensions, there are also tantalizing ideas of entire worlds existing alongside ours, parallel planes of reality. Imagine that our universe is like a sheet of paper, and there could be other sheets stacked nearby in a vast cosmic library. Each sheet is a separate universe, perhaps with its own stars and galaxies, its own laws of nature, maybe even its own forms of life. These universes could be extremely close to ours, in a higher dimensional space, almost touching, yet still invisible and unreachable, because they are not part of our sheet. Just as two pages of a book lie side by side, but each contains a different story. These parallel planes could lie adjacent to our own world, carrying on their own histories, separate from ours. Another way to picture it is to think of bubbles in a quiet foam. Our universe might be one bubble floating in a vast sea of bubbles. Each bubble is sealed off with its own self-contained reality, but all are drifting in the same great expanse. Perhaps some bubbles pop into being, or occasionally brush against each other, causing a subtle ripple. If our cosmic bubble were ever to touch another, who knows what tiny exchange might occur in that brief contact? One fanciful notion along these lines comes from the realm of quantum physics. It suggests that reality might branch out into multiple outcomes whenever a choice or chance event occurs. Think of a moment when you stood at a crossroads in life, perhaps choosing a career or whether to move to a new city. In our reality, you made one choice and followed that path. But what if, in a parallel plane of existence, another version of you made a different choice, and that world carried on with that alternate story? This idea, sometimes called the many worlds interpretation, paints a picture of a constantly splitting multiverse, like a majestic tree that keeps branching and branching, each branch a different timeline of reality. In one universe, events unfold one way. In another, they take a different turn. For example, in one world, an important historical event might have had a different outcome, leading that world down a unique path. In another, your daily life might have small differences. Perhaps you live in a different town, or pursued a dream you set aside here. The differences could be grand or subtle, but each possibility would spin off its own universe, quietly coexisting with ours. It's like countless storylines running in parallel, none interfering with the others, each as real as the next. If such parallel planes exist, most of the time they would remain isolated, each sealed within its own reality. We could live out our entire lives never knowing or sensing those other worlds at all. Yet, it's intriguing to wonder if there might be rare moments when the boundaries between these realities grow thin, just as a delicate curtain might allow a glimpse of light from the room beyond. Perhaps occasionally, a bit of one universe could be glimpsed from within another. Some might speculate that this could be behind strange phenomena we hear about, those odd stories or unexplained events that feel as though reality blinked or shifted for a moment. Imagine seeing a building or landscape that later seems to have vanished without a trace, or meeting someone who appears to know you deeply, though you've never met. Episodes that leave us wondering if two worlds briefly intertwined. But even without such intersections, the mere possibility of parallel worlds stretches our imagination and reminds us of how much we have yet to discover. Beyond scientific theories, the idea of other planes of existence has deep roots in human culture and spirituality. Ancient traditions around the world have spoken of realms beyond the physical, heavens above, underworlds below, and various spiritual domains in between, places where divine beings or souls reside, layered just out of human sight. For example, Celtic folklore speaks of an otherworld, a magical realm parallel to our own, said to reveal itself on certain misty nights or sacred times, allowing fairies or spirits to cross into our reality. Many religions and cultures hold that when we die, we move on to another plane, an afterlife, suggesting that our soul's journey continues in a different realm that exists alongside this one. Even in modern times, people who have come close to death sometimes describe journeys to realms of light or encounters with departed loved ones in a beautiful other world, as if they had peered through the curtain of our reality into another. Shamans and mystics, in states of deep meditation or trance, have long claimed to travel to these hidden realms, bringing back vivid accounts of landscapes and beings they encountered. We might interpret those stories in various ways, but one perspective is to see them as early intuitions of parallel planes. In quiet moments, perhaps those seekers felt they could slip into another layer of reality, one filled with archetypal images, guiding spirits, or loved ones living in a world beyond ours. In a more everyday sense, some people speak of a sixth sense, or intuition, a feeling that there is more to reality than meets the eye. Have you ever walked into an old house and felt a presence or an atmosphere you couldn't quite explain? Or noticed a pet, a cat, or dog perhaps, suddenly staring intently at a corner of the room, as if someone unseen were there? Often we brush these moments aside, yet they hint at our deep-seated wonder about unseen dimensions. One might playfully wonder if animals or intuitive people sometimes perceive a faint trace of another plane brushing against our own. Maybe what we sense in those instances isn't a ghost in the spooky sense, but a subtle overlap of realities, a brief awareness of something existing just beyond the veil of our normal world, like two soap bubbles briefly touching in mid-air before drifting apart. Whether we speak in scientific terms of higher dimensions and multiple universes, or in mystical terms of spirit realms and unseen energies, the theme is surprisingly similar. It's as if two different languages are trying to describe the same profound idea, that the universe may be far more layered and rich than it appears. Just as a complex melody can have harmonies hidden beneath the main notes, reality might have hidden harmonies of its own, subtle dimensions of existence playing softly underneath the familiar tune of everyday life. For all our differences in approach, both the scientist and the sage are driven by a sense that what we see is not all that is there. It's a gentle hum of possibility that we can almost hear when we let our minds grow very still and open. Lying here in the darkness, imagining these hidden dimensions and parallel planes, we might feel both humbled and comforted. Humbled because we recognize how much about existence we still do not know. Comforted because these ideas suggest that our world is part of something much larger, an endless tapestry of realities perhaps, or a boundless ocean with many shores. If ever we feel lonely or confined, we can remember that in the grand scheme, we might be surrounded by countless worlds, each one a thread in the fabric of infinity. Though we may never see them with our eyes, just knowing they could be there is a reminder that mystery and possibility are woven into the very structure of everything. Our contemplation of hidden dimensions and parallel planes invites a subtle shift in how we view odd occurrences around us. Once we accept that reality could have layers or neighboring worlds, we begin to wonder if sometimes those layers might overlap in tiny, fleeting ways. A misplaced item that turns up in an impossible spot, a vivid impression that you've seen a place before when you know you haven't, or a moment when time itself feels out of joint. These might all be easier to imagine if we think of reality as more than a single solid sheet. And so, with an open mind and a calm curiosity, we drift naturally into our next reflection. The curious phenomenon of little glitches in reality. Those moments when the orderly tapestry of life shows a loose thread or two, hinting that there might be more behind the weave. Every now and then, in the midst of our ordinary lives, something strange and unexpected might happen that makes us pause and wonder. It's as if reality hiccups for a brief moment, a tiny glitch in the smooth flow of everyday experience. These occurrences are usually subtle, but they can leave a deep impression, a feeling that we just witnessed a crack in the veneer of the world. One of the most common of these little oddities is the feeling of déjà vu. You might be chatting with a friend or walking into a new place, and suddenly a wave of familiarity washes over you. For a few seconds, you have the uncanny sense that you've lived this exact moment before, down to the same words and details. Nothing truly extraordinary is happening. You're still where you were, doing what you were doing. But for that brief moment, reality feels duplicated, as if time looped back on itself without telling us. The sensation fades quickly, leaving only a gentle wonder. Was it just a trick of the mind? Or did we just brush against something beyond our timeline? A parallel track, momentarily aligning with our own? Other glitches come in the form of objects or scenes that don't quite add up. Perhaps you misplace your keys, only to find them later in a spot you are sure you had already checked, as if they vanished and returned when you weren't looking. Or you open a cupboard to grab a cup, and for an instant the shelf is empty. You blink, and the cup is right there where it should be. These moments are easy to shrug off as oversight, yet when they happen, they give us a faint sense that reality isn't as solid as we assume. It's like a slight ripple passed through the world, and for just a heartbeat, things weren't where they were supposed to be. Some people share stories of seeing the impossible, if only for a heartbeat. Imagine walking down a quiet street and noticing a stranger in a bright red coat passing by. A minute later, you turn a corner and see the same stranger in the red coat pass by again in the same direction, even though there's no feasible way they could have gotten ahead of you. Or consider sitting at home and hearing a familiar voice call your name, only to realize you're entirely alone in the house. In the moment, such events can send a brief chill down the spine, but when recounted calmly later, they feel more like puzzles than horrors, gentle reminders of how little we understand the workings of reality. Time itself can play tricks on us as well. Perhaps you've experienced a lazy afternoon where you glance at the clock, then lose yourself in thought or routine, and when you next check the time, far more has passed than you expected. Or the opposite, you might be bracing for a long wait, only to find that the hands of the clock have hardly moved at all, even though you felt like you were waiting forever. Every so often, though, people describe more startling slips in time. They recall driving a familiar route and somehow reaching their destination impossibly early, as if a chunk of the journey simply didn't happen. Others speak of moments when the world around them fell eerily silent and still, and for those few seconds time itself felt paused. Then everything resumed its normal pace. Such episodes are rare and personal, and we usually chalk them up to imagination or attention tricks, but they add to the collection of anomalies that make us ponder the true nature of time and reality. Then there are the curious cases of collective misremembering, often called the Mandela effect. These are instances where many people recall an event or detail differently from how it really is, as if an alternate version of history somehow seeped into our memory. They might remember a famous line from a movie that was never actually spoken, or the title of a childhood book spelled in a way that it never was in this world. When they discover the discrepancy, it feels as though they've woken from a shared dream to find reality subtly changed. Some wonder if this too could be a sign of parallel worlds. Perhaps at some point, timelines crossed or merged, and a small piece of one reality stuck to another, leaving a whole group of people with the same false memory of something that, in this timeline, never occurred. In our modern age, we even have a light-hearted phrase for these odd happenings: a glitch in the matrix. It's a nod to a popular story, but people use it whenever reality seems to falter for a moment. They'll laugh and say, "Must have been a glitch," when a coincidence is too uncanny or an event too absurdly out of the ordinary. Beneath the humour, though, there's often a genuine curiosity. We make a joke, but we're also acknowledging, however briefly, that our world has mysteries we can't easily explain. Even if we're not seriously concerned that our reality is a computer simulation bugging out, these little moments make us tilt our head and think, what was that? And in that questioning lies a quiet openness to the unknown. What causes these glitches? Perhaps most of them are just tricks of perception or memory. The human brain is, after all, a master of pattern making, and sometimes it misfires. But it's also fun to speculate with a childlike heart. If our universe were a grand simulation, maybe once in a while a tiny error slips through, like a brief flicker in the program. Or if there are parallel planes of reality, perhaps now and then they brush against each other, and we catch a fleeting glimpse of something or someone that belongs elsewhere. The truth might be prosaic, but allowing ourselves to imagine these possibilities can make the world feel a bit more magical. Importantly, these glitches are almost always benign. They are like little cosmic jokes that leave us with more wonder than worry. We find our keys again. The feeling of déjà vu passes. The strange repetition on the street becomes a story to tell. Life continues, solid and reassuring, and the odd moment becomes a memory that might make us smile later. In a way, glitches add a touch of enchantment to our lives, reminding us that no matter how well we think we understand reality, there may always be surprises hidden in the fabric of existence. As we reflect on these tiny slips and cracks in our daily experience, we realize they have been happening for as long as people have been observing the world. For every puzzling moment we have, there are tales from others who have experienced something just as strange. Some of those tales are brief and subtle, like the examples we've whispered about, but others are more dramatic, full stories of people who claim to have stepped beyond the veil of our reality entirely, finding themselves in places or situations that don't belong in our world at all. Before we drift into those accounts, we take a slow, calming breath. Remember that whether we treat them as truth or metaphor, these stories carry a gentle intrigue. They invite us to stretch our imagination while still feeling safe in the familiarity of our own bed, listening in the dark. Now, with curiosity and calmness, we turn to a few of these stories of parallel worlds that people have shared, letting them unfold like soft, otherworldly dreams within our imagination. Human history and imagination are rich with tales of journeys to other worlds, sometimes stumbled upon by accident. From fairy tales to modern fiction, we often imagine hidden doorways to other realms, whether it's a rabbit hole leading to a wonderland, a looking glass reflecting a parallel world, or a wardrobe opening upon a magical kingdom. These stories, whether folklore, legend, or personal account, are told in hushed voices, or written in old journals, passed down through generations, or shared in the quiet corners of the internet. They ignite that spark of wonder in us, the notion that perhaps, just perhaps, the boundary between our world and others might be crossed under rare and mysterious circumstances. Let's wander through a few such tales, allowing the gentle mystery of each to unfold in our minds. One of the oldest legends of an otherworldly encounter comes from a medieval English village. As the story goes, on a warm, sunlit day in the village of Woolpit, field workers discovered two young children wandering near the edge of the fields. A boy and a girl, they appeared like ordinary children in most respects, except for one startling detail. Their skin was green, a delicate, leafy green, as if kissed by the colours of spring. The children were frightened and spoke a language no one recognised. They refused all food offered to them, growing anxious until someone brought fresh broad beans, which they devoured eagerly, raw. With time, the children learned a bit of the local language and shared a puzzling tale of their own origins. They said they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, where there was no sun, only a perpetual twilight, and everyone was green like they were. They recalled tending their father's cattle, and one day they heard a strange sound, like the bells of a church, and suddenly they found themselves by Woolpit's wolf pits, overwhelmed by the bright sunlight and the unfamiliar world. Though aspects of their story remained enigmatic, and the boy sadly fell ill and passed away, the girl grew up among the villagers, eventually losing the green tint in her skin. She lived a normal life thereafter, but the mystery of her childhood never truly faded. Were the green children visitors from a parallel realm beneath the earth, or perhaps from a reality that runs alongside our own? The people of that time had their theories. Some spoke of fairy realms, or a land of the dead. But in truth, the tale left more questions than answers, lingering like a half-remembered dream passed down through the ages. Now, let us move forward to a more recent, yet equally puzzling account, often whispered among aficionados of the unexplained. In the mid-20th century, on a seemingly ordinary day at a busy international airport, a man arrived with a passport from a country that doesn't exist, at least not in our world. The man was of average appearance, fluent in several languages, and carried authentic-looking documents. His passport appeared to be from a country named Taurid. Perplexed, the immigration officers questioned him. He insisted Taurid was a real nation, located between France and Spain. When shown a map, he pointed to the area of the tiny Principality of Andorra. But he was utterly perplexed as to why his homeland was missing. He carried stamps in his passport from other countries, including previous visits to that very same airport, and he even had a driver's license and bank checks from Taurid. Unsure what to do, the officials put him up in a hotel for the night while they investigated further. Guards were posted outside his door. But by morning, the mystery deepened. The man had vanished without a trace from his locked room, taking all his belongings with him. No one saw him leave, and his documents were never found again. All records of Taurid remained non-existent in our world. Those who have looked into this story often wonder, did this man accidentally slip through a crack between his reality and ours, only to slip back overnight? Or was it all just an elaborate hoax? We may never know, but the tale of the man from Taurid continues to intrigue, a modern myth hinting at parallel Earths with slightly different maps. Sometimes, the stories of crossing into other worlds feel like stepping backward in time. One charming account from the late 20th century tells of two couples driving through the French countryside on holiday. As dusk settled in, they searched for a place to spend the night. They came upon an old-fashioned inn tucked away off the main road. Eager for rest, they decided to stay there. Inside, everything seemed oddly quaint and antiquated. The furnishings were straight out of the 19th century. The rooms had no telephones or modern amenities, and the decor was from an era long past. They even saw a few people in the lobby, dressed in old-fashioned clothes that they assumed might be part of a nostalgic local custom or costume. Nevertheless, the beds were comfortable, and the travellers slept soundly. In the morning, they had a simple breakfast and were astonished at how inexpensive the room and board were. The bill was only a few francs, which was strangely cheap, even for that time. The proprietor shrugged and accepted the payment with a polite smile. The couples went on their way, but on their return journey, they thought it would be delightful to stop at the quaint inn again. This time, however, they could not find it. The road was there, the landmarks were recognizable, but of the inn there was no sign. Believing they must have somehow missed it, they later asked locals about the old inn, describing its details. Not only did no one know of such a place, but some noted that the description sounded like a hotel from a century ago that had long since closed down or been demolished. The couples even developed their photos from that day, only to find that any pictures that included the inn or its interior inexplicably failed to develop properly, while all other photos from the trip were perfectly fine. The travellers were left bewildered. Had they spent a night in a place that existed in another time, or perhaps in a parallel pocket of reality where the old inn still stood, welcoming weary guests? The story feels like a gentle ghost of history brushing up against the present, leaving behind a mystery as soft and fleeting as a whisper. Another intriguing account of a possible time slip comes from early 20th century France. In 1901, two English women were visiting the gardens of the Palace of Versailles on a quiet afternoon. As they explored the Petit Trianon, a small chateau on the palace grounds, they noticed an uncanny change in the atmosphere. The landscape appeared oddly old-fashioned, and people dressed in 18th century clothing seemed to be going about their lives on the lawns. The women later described seeing figures that resembled historical characters, even claiming one might have been Marie Antoinette herself, sketching serenely in the grass. Everything was eerily still and out of time. When the women left the area and the spell broke, they were baffled by the experience. The Petit Trianon of 1901 looked nothing like the vivid scene they had momentarily walked through. They wondered if they had somehow wandered into the past, or if the memories of that place had briefly come alive around them. Their story, which they published in a report years later, was met with both intrigue and skepticism. But to those who hear it, it carries the same haunting question. Can the fabric of time and reality ripple in such a way that one era might overlap with another, even for just a moment? Our final tale is a contemporary one, a personal account from the early 21st century that suggests slipping not in space or time, but in the fabric of one's own life. A woman named Lorena went to sleep one night in 2008, and when she awoke, she sensed that the world around her was strangely altered. At first, everything seemed normal. Her home, her body, the morning light through the window. But little details didn't align. The set of sheets on her bed was different from what she remembered using the night before. She drove to her workplace, only to find that the department she thought she worked for was not there. In fact, she was listed as working in a completely different department, under a supervisor she had never met. Confused, she returned home and found that her longtime boyfriend was nowhere to be found, as if he had never existed. And yet, there were records of her having a relationship with someone else, a partner she did not know. Over the following days, Lorena quietly sought answers, visiting doctors and browsing through news archives. Everything in the world matched this new reality she was experiencing, but it did not match her memories. No one else perceived anything amiss. Only she felt the dissonance. Eventually, she confided in an online forum, searching for anyone who might have experienced something similar. Her story gained attention as an astonishing example of a possible shift between parallel timelines. Some speculated she had dreamed her previous life, but to her, that life had been absolutely real. Imagine the calm courage it took for her to carry on with her daily routine, while privately believing that somehow, perhaps while asleep, she had slipped into a world that was not quite the one she came from. Lorena's tale ends without a clear resolution. She never returned to the reality she remembered, and over time, she adjusted to the version of life she woke up to. Yet she never lost the conviction that she had, in some inexplicable way, become a traveller between worlds, if only for that one bewildering night. Listening to these stories, we might feel a range of emotions: wonder, curiosity, a tingle of mystery. But throughout, we remain in a safe place, merely observers. Each tale is like a gentle breeze from a far-off realm, stirring the curtains of our imagination. We don't need to decide whether each story is literally true or a fanciful legend. Their true power lies in how they make us feel and the questions they encourage us to ask. They remind us that the world, for all its familiar corners and routines, still holds space for the inexplicable and the enchanted. Perhaps the specific events happened as told, or perhaps they are metaphors or exaggerations that have evolved over time. Either way, the effect on us is the same. Our minds open a little wider, and the universe feels a little deeper and more magical. Most of us will never encounter green children in a field, or find a passport from an unknown country. Our lives tend to follow the reliable patterns we know. But even if we never walk into a parallel world in our waking life, we are all travellers of a different sort. Every night, when we close our eyes, we slip into inner worlds of our own making. Dreams take us to places that can be as astonishing and otherworldly as any tale of secret realms. In dreams, we might speak to people who are no longer with us, visit places we've never been, or even find ourselves in bodies and lives that aren't our own. We voyage beyond the confines of our waking reality, guided by the subconscious, to landscapes limited only by imagination. And so, as we leave these stories of real-world mysteries behind, we prepare to enter the boundless territory of dreams, our very personal gateway to other worlds each and every night. Night after night, when we surrender to sleep, we embark on a journey into realms unbounded by the rules of waking life. In the quiet darkness, as our bodies rest, our minds lighten and lift off, drifting into landscapes of imagination and memory. Dreaming is like stepping through a secret doorway inside ourselves, a doorway that opens into a vast inner cosmos. One moment we lie in a familiar bedroom, eyes closed. The next, we might find ourselves wandering through a sunlit meadow that stretches as far as the eye can see, or floating high above an endless ocean under strange stars. In dreams, we become travellers without ever moving from our beds, explorers of our own private multiverse of the mind. Consider how vivid a dream can be. We have all had those dreams that felt incredibly real while we were in them. Perhaps you dreamed of strolling through a childhood home, every detail exactly as it was years ago. Even a scent of baking, or the sound of a familiar floorboard creaking underfoot. Or maybe you found yourself in a fantastical city with towering crystal arches and waterfalls of light, a place you've never seen in waking life. And yet, in the dream, it felt tangible and concrete. Our senses in dreams can be astonishingly acute. Colours can glow with greater intensity than in reality. Music can sound more beautiful and otherworldly, and emotions can wash over us like tides, deep and unfiltered. All the while, we accept the dream scenarios as normal, no matter how peculiar, until we awaken. Dreams have a logic all their own. Time in dreams is malleable. We might experience days or years in a single night. Indeed, there are tales of people who have lived what felt like entire lifetimes within a single dream. They recount dreaming of growing up in a different town, forming friendships, even raising a family, all in the span of one long night. When they awaken, the detailed memories of those many years wash over them, and it can be profoundly moving or disorienting to realize that an entire chapter of life played out only in their mind. Such experiences illustrate just how expansive the dream world can be, stretching and weaving time in ways our waking mind can barely comprehend. Conversely, we might hop from one moment to another in the blink of an eye. We might be ourselves, or we might wear a different face and live a different life. In dreams, it's not uncommon to become someone or something else entirely. A bird soaring through pastel twilight skies, a fish gliding in clear water, or another person from a different era, speaking words in a language you don't know when awake. We can converse with people who are long gone or not yet born, receive wisdom from strangers that our dreaming mind somehow conjures, or solve problems with a creativity that surprises us. The normal rules of cause and effect relax their grip. You might walk through a doorway in a dream and find that it leads not to the expected room, but to a beach at sunrise, or to the stars, or to a bustling market in some ancient village. And in that moment, none of it feels strange. The dream gently flows from scene to scene, carrying you along. Sometimes, when dreams are especially clear, we only realize how extraordinary they were after we wake up. Have you ever woken from a dream and for a few precious seconds still felt its atmosphere clinging to you? Maybe your heart was pounding from a thrilling chase that happened in the safety of your mind, or you felt the lingering warmth of a hug from someone in the dream who, in reality, is far away. There can be a bittersweet beauty in those instants after waking, a brief confusion where the boundaries between the dream world and the real world haven't yet fully solidified. In those soft dawn moments, we sometimes wish we could slip back into the dream, especially if it was a beautiful one, to continue the story right where it left off. From ancient times, people have wondered about the nature and significance of dreams. In some cultures, dreams were thought to be messages from the divine or visits to spiritual realms. The Australian Aboriginal peoples speak of the dream time, a sort of timeless, sacred domain where the past, present, and future of their world were formed, and which can be visited in dreams or deep states of consciousness. Many indigenous traditions around the world have viewed dreams as journeys of the soul. While the body sleeps, the soul might wander freely, meeting other souls or traveling to distant places before returning with the sunrise. Even in ancient Greece and Rome, it was common to believe that one could receive guidance or healing through dreams. People would sleep in temples, hoping for a meaningful dream sent by the gods. All these perspectives share a common thread: the idea that dreams are not just random nonsense, but a meaningful excursion into a hidden layer of reality, perhaps a personal parallel world that runs alongside our waking life. Modern science approaches dreams a bit differently, seeing them as a product of the brain processing memories and emotions. But even scientists acknowledge how mysterious and powerful dreams can be. Consider that every night, without conscious effort, we create entire worlds in our mind. Our brains become storytellers and artists, blending fragments of our experiences with imagination to craft scenarios that sometimes even we could not invent deliberately. In a way, each of us becomes a mini creator of a universe when we dream. These dream worlds may not be physical or persistent in the way this world is, but while we are in them, they envelop us completely. It's fascinating to think that every person you pass on the street each day, all the millions of people in the world, each night they have their own secret cinema of the mind, full of unique images and stories that no one else can see. In that sense, we carry countless other worlds within us, sharing the daylight but voyaging off to separate dreamlands when we sleep. There are times when dreams and reality seem to overlap in curious ways. You might dream of a person you haven't thought about in years, and the next day, unexpectedly, you receive a letter or message from them, or you visit a place in a dream that you've never been, and later, by coincidence, see a photo of a location that looks strikingly similar. Such experiences can feel like a gentle déjà vu between dreams and waking life, almost as if the boundaries blurred just a little. Some people even report shared dreams, where two friends or relatives sleeping in different places have very similar dream narratives on the same night, discovering the similarity only after comparing notes. When events like these happen, it makes us wonder if dreams tap into something beyond just our individual minds, perhaps a collective tapestry of thoughts, or even a spiritual plane where minds meet. While science might attribute these cases to chance or subconscious cues, the feeling they leave us with is enchanting, a hint that the web of life and consciousness is more interconnected than it seems. Have you ever become aware that you were dreaming while still inside the dream? This phenomenon, called lucid dreaming, is like a sudden awakening within sleep. One moment you're going along with the dream's flow, and the next you realize, wait, I'm in a dream. When this happens, something magical can occur. You can consciously participate in the dream. People who experience lucidity in dreams often describe a surge of wonder, even joy. They find they can sometimes influence the dream's direction, perhaps choose to fly up into the sky, or summon a dear friend to talk to. Imagine standing in a dream meadow, feeling the soft grass, knowing that your real body lies safe in bed, and that nothing around you is solid, yet everything feels real. In that moment, you might stretch your arms and lift off the ground, flying effortlessly over hills and rivers, the landscape illuminated by a golden, unsetting sun. Such an experience can be profoundly beautiful and freeing. Lucid dreaming blurs the line between reality and imagination even further, showing us firsthand how our consciousness can shape the worlds we perceive. Even when dreams are not lucid, they offer a kind of sanctuary where ordinary limitations fade away. Perhaps in waking life we have constraints or worries, but in dreams we might find ourselves healed, whole, and unburdened. Someone who cannot walk in the physical world might run freely in dreams. Someone who has lost a loved one might joyfully reunite with them for a time in the land of sleep. These encounters can bring real comfort. The mind creates a space where, for a little while, the heart's deepest yearnings can be fulfilled, or its fears gently confronted in symbolic form. For example, you might dream that you're sitting in the backyard with a beloved relative who has passed on, watching fireflies and sharing a gentle laugh. In that dream, they are alive and well beside you, perhaps squeezing your hand reassuringly, and you feel a deep sense of comfort and closure. A dream about embracing a departed friend, for instance, can be a source of solace, as though their spirit truly visited to say hello. In this way, dreams can be gifts, nature's nightly therapy and adventure rolled into one. It's also intriguing to ponder, could some of our dreams be glimpses of realities beyond our own? This idea takes us full circle to the multiverse of possibilities we've explored. If there are infinite worlds, perhaps now and then our sleeping mind tunes into one. When you dream of living a completely different life, could it be that somewhere, another version of you is actually living that life, and your consciousness momentarily slipped into their perspective? Or when you have a dream set in an unknown yet detailed city, maybe such a place exists on a parallel Earth, and you wandered its streets in your sleep. There's no evidence for this, of course, but it's a soothing fantasy to entertain as we drift off. The notion that our souls or minds can meander through the cosmos, untethered by physical limits, touching other realms lightly, like a breeze. Even if this isn't literally true, it speaks to a deeper point. Our capacity to imagine these things is itself a marvel. Dreams remind us that reality, at least in our perception, is flexible and rich with potential. One famous parable about the mystery of dreams comes from ancient China. A philosopher named Zhuangzi once dreamed he was a carefree butterfly, fluttering through the fields. In the dream, he had no awareness of his life as a man. He was simply the butterfly, enjoying the breeze. When he awoke, he found himself back in his human form, lying in bed. But he was struck by the experience and wondered, was I Zhuangzi who dreamt of being a butterfly? Or am I now a butterfly dreaming that I am Zhuangzi? This gentle question captures the enchanting uncertainty that dreams can inspire. It suggests that the line between dream and reality might be more subjective than we think, and that perhaps, from a different point of view, our waking life could be seen as just another kind of dream. Every time we drift into sleep, there's a moment of letting go. As you sink into slumber, your muscles soften and your breath becomes slow and steady, as if your body knows it is safe to let go and drift into rest. We release the tight hold on our waking identity and allow ourselves to dissolve into the larger sea of consciousness. In doing so, we trust that we'll emerge again, with morning's light as ourselves. But during the night, we get to inhabit other skins, other stories. And in the safety of our dreams, even the strangest adventures carry no real danger, only lessons or experiences. We always awaken back to this life, often with a new insight or a fresh feeling that we earned from our night's journey. As this gentle exploration of otherworldly theories and visions comes to a pause for now, think of how fitting it is to end with dreaming. For what are dreams, if not personal other worlds that we visit regularly? They are the mirrors of infinity turned inward, showing us that we each contain a multitude. And as you listen to these words, you might already feel yourself drifting at the edge of sleep, ready to step into your own dreamy universe. Feel the comfort of that prospect. Nothing in your dreams can truly harm you. They are like a soft playground for the soul, a place where the laws of physics bow to the laws of the heart and mind. In dreams, you are free to explore without limits, to heal, to play, to seek answers, or simply to wander. Now, as we lie here in the quiet darkness, breathing softly, we can sense that our journey through these many ideas, from simulations to hidden dimensions, from little glitches to fantastical tales, and finally to the world of dreams, is part of a much larger and ongoing exploration. Each question we've pondered and each story we've imagined is like a star in a vast sky, individually beautiful and collectively hinting at a grand design we can only barely fathom. There is no rush to understand it all. For now, it's enough to feel the wonder of not knowing to appreciate the mysteries that make life so rich and strange. In the gentle darkness, you might picture yourself standing at a threshold. Behind you is the familiar world of wakefulness, and ahead, through a gauzy veil, waits the landscape of dreams. You step forward lightly, and the veil parts. As you step through, a new scene materializes around you. Perhaps you find yourself in a tranquil forest under the light of a full moon. Silvery beams filter down through the canopy of tall, ancient trees, illuminating a path of soft moss that cushions your every footstep. The air is cool but gentle on your skin, and it carries the faint scent of night-blooming flowers. Somewhere in the distance, you might hear the lullaby of a slow creek winding its way over stones, and the whisper of a breeze stirring the leaves overhead. You walk slowly along the mossy path, feeling completely safe and unhurried. Each breath you take fills your lungs with crisp night air, and you notice fireflies blinking softly among the ferns, guiding you onward. A friendly owl hoots from a far-off perch, as if acknowledging your presence. You sense that this forest knows you and welcomes you. Every detail, from the texture of the earth beneath your feet to the distant twinkling of stars between the treetops, is vivid and comforting. Yet you also know, with a serene kind of lucidity, that you are dreaming, and that you are the gentle creator of this world. In this dream realm, you are free to explore without limit. You could follow the sound of the creek to discover a moonlit pond surrounded by glowing lilies. Or you might find a little wooden cabin with warm light spilling from its windows, inviting you to step inside. Wherever your subconscious guides you, you trust it completely. There is no rush and no fear here. If the scene shifts or melts into another, you simply go with it, flowing like water from one peaceful tableau to the next. Time has no hold on you. Minutes or hours have no meaning in this sanctuary of the night. You are a willing traveler in this inner universe, cradled by the knowledge that your waking self is resting safely, giving you leave to wander. Imagine you choose to step inside that cozy cabin. The wooden door opens with a gentle creak, and you enter a snug little room bathed in golden lamplight. The air smells faintly of cedar and vanilla. A fire crackles softly in a stone fireplace, its flames dancing shadows along walls lined with books and comfortable quilts. In the center of the room sits a plush armchair covered in soft, worn fabric. You sink into it and feel an immediate sense of ease. Perhaps on a small table beside you, there's a steaming cup of herbal tea that tastes just right, soothing and warm. As you sit there, you realize that outside the cabin, night has deepened, and through a round window you can see the moon hanging low and silver. You feel completely at peace in this place. It is as if this sanctuary was created just for you, to rest and simply be. There's nothing you need to do but enjoy the quiet comfort. In this haven, any lingering thoughts gently fade away, replaced by the simple joy of the present moment. And as you journey deeper into this private cosmos, remember that the curiosity and open-hearted wonder we have cultivated will travel with you. Whether you find yourself dreaming of other worlds or simply enjoying a deep, dreamless slumber, you remain a part of this beautiful mystery. We have wandered together through ideas at the edge of understanding, and now you continue the voyage in the most natural way, by resting, by dreaming, by being. There is no definitive end to this exploration, only a continuing unfolding. When you awaken, the world will be here, and you may carry a piece of the night's quiet wisdom back with you.